count on me. You're gonna have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Whammos, Shay Bams. Two, check. Hello. Ate an Italian
count
sub
on
on
me.
stream.
You're gonna have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
2 years ago on this very day I joined the community, nay, the family of Rob Rousseau. We have learned, we have loved, we have laughed, and now we certainly will have PP badged.
Thank you, Marty. Thank you for the 24 months resub at tier 2 and for everything you do for this community. Marty, you know, we joke around sometimes with the whole friendship triangle system. Well, guess what? We're actually friends. For real. It's not just, I'm not just joking around. I'm not just joking around about this. It's not a game. It's real. All right? Thank you, Marty. And thank you also to James. Thank you, James Ed Smith, for the 23 months tier 1. Very close to that 2-year badge as well. James Ed Smith. Thanks for all the support, James. And listen, we're all friends, all of us here. Okay, I didn't mean to single out Marty. We're all friends, just maybe I'm just on a slightly higher level. All right, that's all. There's different tiers. There's different tiers, as you know. Okay? Okay. Well, see, I'm getting started a little earlier here. I just, as I've said before, on Tuesdays and Thursdays, as was explained to you. That's right. I've been very clear about this. Everyone is equal in their own way. As I mentioned, Tuesdays and Thursdays I have a little bit less time to work with. I've got more of a hard cutoff on those days for childcare reasons. So kind of trying to get into the habit of getting started maybe a little bit earlier. Slightly early. That's right. It wasn't super early. I just wanted to get up and running on the quick side. Gifting subs is the true friendship. I mean, that's really can't be broken down more simply than that. So I got a bit of a hard cutoff on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and yeah, today I gotta make sure that I'm on time. Gonna bring my kid to get his haircut after school today. And we got another big show.
You've just become an elite member of the Friendship Triangle.
Brian, thank you so much for the 5 gifted subs. My goodness. Brian is really like burst onto the scene with a lot of force. Very forcefully. He's burst onto the scene and he's rocketed right up. into that elite tier with vigor. Thank you. Rocketed right up to that elite tier. Thank you very much, Brian, for the 5 gifted subs and for all the support. That's wonderful. And hello, Husker. What's up? So another big show today. I got another guest coming on. I'm kind of going crazy this week. I'm doing some actual journalism. I'm getting a bunch of guests. I had Alex Peters on Tuesday. I had the aka Lol Overruled, aka Lolo. I had Deprogram Pod yesterday, obviously, which was tremendous. And today, I've got Justin Poder. Justin Poder is coming on the show today. Justin Poder, anti-imperialist author, podcaster, and blogger. Wrote this interesting piece talking about the xenophobic China Red Scare, Yellow Peril thing that's happening in Canada right now in Canadian journalism and politics. He wrote a piece a couple weeks ago, on March 15th, so last week, called Multiculturalism is Over in Canada. It's back to xenophobia. He's been talking about this whole story, the CSIS, Trudeau, Chinese, electoral interference, Two Michaels story, which there's all kinds of new stuff dropping about that. So Justin's going to come on the show today to talk about this story. It's a big story in Canada right now. I think it's a bullshit story, and I think it's obscuring what the real story is, as usual. But Justin's going to come on to break down this story, whether we're going to find out whether CSIS is indeed trying to coup Justin Trudeau right now, or what the hell's going on. So he's going to be coming on at 1:30. We got plenty to talk about today as we cover this big story. I'm really trying, folks. I'm trying to do some serious journalism on this program this week. Our USA Red Scare is in full throttle with TikTok in Congress. And as we've seen in Canada as well, like we're talking about banning TikTok on government phones as well. And I'm sure we're going to be part of that conversation as soon as America tells us that we have to do it. Which is the amazing thing. I mean, this is we're going to go back to this time and time again today, so get used to hearing this. But we're having this national meltdown freakout right now over Chinese interference in Canadian democracy, while just completely ignoring, as we always do, the country that does indeed interfere in our democracy, in our politics, and our culture nonstop every single day, and who in fact gives us basically marching orders when it comes to foreign policy or economic policy, which we dutifully follow. That's the United States of America. The United States of America, that's the country that is exerting its influence on Canada. That's the country that is interfering in Canadian democracy and politics. As usual, the idea that we're freaking out right now over fucking China and completely ignoring the role that America and other countries such as Israel plays in interfering and controlling our political spheres, then I don't know. If you're focusing on China right now and over those things, you seriously have fucking rocks in your brain. But I guess that describes the vast majority of the Canadian punditry folks who are weighing in on this, because it's a feeding frenzy right now. It is a goddamn feeding frenzy in Canadian media right now. These people are in heaven. These power worshipping, CSIS loving stenographers, security state stenographers of the Canadian media class right now are just going nuts. They love this right now. This is the best week of their fucking lives. So we're going to be talking about all this today, and Justin Poder is going to come on at 1:30 to help break this down. The Canadian Ben Garrison should draw that as a right-wing cartoon. Or giving you good advice for the little angel on your shoulder, and China's the big scary red devil.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Fellow patriots, allow me to reintroduce myself. I just came back from Memphis and I survived the Grizzlies-Warriors game. Ja Morant didn't pull a gun on me, so W me.
Very nice. Coal Mine, thank you very much for the 26 months tier 1. Happy to hear that. Happy to hear you made it back okay. How was the game? Raptors lost after I was talking positively about the Raptors yesterday, they lost a must-win game against a tanking team in extremely disappointing fashion. I don't even know what to make of it anymore. This is why I haven't been watching this year. This is why, so I don't have to put myself through this shit. Anyway, to Red Scary's point, yes, a Canadian cartoonist should do that exact cartoon, and I don't doubt that there's the Canadian cartoonists are putting up some solid work on this story right now. I don't doubt it. We can investigate this today. We can investigate what Canada's intrepid political cartoonists have to say about this. I just got to do a little bit of chit chat first. That's why I wanted to get started a little bit earlier so we can have a little bit of time to get the chit chat out of our systems. I'm gonna eat my lunch. This is really like a dépanneur lunch, but it's like a pretty solid one. I got this spicy ramen bowl. Having that. I got one of these too. I don't know. I'm sure you've got regional variations, but I fucking love these as a little treat sometimes. It's this little honey glazed brioche. Very good. Sometimes throw that on a plate and put it in the microwave like 15 seconds. Tremendous. It's so good. I don't indulge in this every day, but I thought, yeah, honey buns. Sure. Really good stuff, though. Very enjoyable. I don't indulge in them every day. I'm already not really doing so hot in the old health/weight department, so gotta probably not indulge in those too much, but I couldn't resist today. I couldn't resist. I rediscovered Hollywood Rock, and my God, he's hilarious. I watched the Toronto promo. That was some of the best work of his career, for sure. That was very funny. That whole Hollywood Rock run. Follow you on Twitter. Back on Twitch after 5 months. Any France footage? Heard it's kicking off. I mean, there is some incredible footage coming out in France. Absolutely. And it's amazing seeing the authoritarian French riot police beating the shit out of protesters.
This is some guy, Rob Russo, some leftist based in Canada.
Oh my.
I was turned on to this sick individual, and I found this.
Oh my goodness. They're in, folks. They're in. Lucid, thank you very much for the raid. Thank you, Lucid. I really appreciate that. How's your stream today? How's the Lucid Fox stream today? Get in, Raiders. Bring it in here. Hello, I'm Rob. Nice to meet you. Or maybe we've met before. I don't know. Probably. I'm seeing some first-time chatters. Hello, new friends. Thank you for joining us. I'm Rob. I'm a socialist and anti-imperialist streamer here in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. Just doing a little chatting, doing a little mukbang style streaming so far. But I hope you stick around because we're going to have a really interesting show today.
This is some guy, Rob Russo, some leftist based in Canada. I was turned on to this sick individual, and I found this.
I've spoken how refreshing it is that TYT constantly has great takes. Absolutely. Anna Kasparian has really been availing herself very nicely lately. Okay, hello. Welcome to Left Flank Vets Raiders. Bring it on in here, Raiders. Get in here. What is this little piece of hair? It's bugging me. Hello, new Raiders. Thank you, Left Flank Vets, for the raid. Bring it in here. I'm just getting started. We got it's like I'm trying to eat my noodles and have a little lighthearted chit chat. And I mean, just hundreds of people just barged in. Like if I was in a physical room, just like eating my lunch with like a dozen people, just having a little lighthearted chit chat. All of a sudden, hundreds of people are coming in here like, okay, entertain me. I'm here. I'm here. Anyway, thank you. I do appreciate the raids from Lucid and Left Flank Vets. Please smash the follow button, folks. If you've never been to the stream before, I'm Rob. I'm a socialist and anti-imperialist Twitch streamer here in Montreal. Big show today. Very interesting stuff. If you're not plugged into like Canadian politics, I think I got a really interesting show. I hope people stick around. Please smash the follow button if you want to be part of the community. And
you've just become an elite member of the Friendship Triangle.
Thank you, Brian, for another gifted subs. Goodness gracious. Thank you, Brian. I'm a little overwhelmed here. I'm getting a little overwhelmed here. My goodness. Should I run the ad reel? I don't know. I feel like I need to keep these viewers rather than immediately alienating them with my weird and insular 80s self-help cult video that I put together to try and extract subs and donations for my viewers. That'll hook them for life. Okay, fuck it. Fuck it. Fine, I'll run the ad. I'll do this. I'll stare at the camera while I do the ad to make it really extra non-alienating for people. Anyway, folks, this is just a 1 minute and like 15-second long video. It's just a little explainer to explain what the community is about if you've never been around before. I'm just going to play this, and then we got a big show today. We're talking about a deep state coup, Canada style today. This is what we're talking about. We got Justin Trudeau. The Canadian deep state is coming after him, probably at the behest of the U.S. State Department. All kinds of crazy stuff going on in Canada at the moment. Going to be very interesting to talk about. Anyway, here's just chill out, hang back, watch this video. I'm going to crack open this delicious Rain Total Body Fuel Rainbow Sherbet. Very good flavor. New flavor available in here in Canada. Highly recommend it. Very good stuff. That's right, it's a maple coup going on right now. I'm going to play this video and crack my energy drink. If you want to support the community and subscribe to the channel after you watch this video, I would appreciate it. But in any case, here it is. Okay?
Thank you for expressing interest in the Friendship Triangle community. We would be thrilled to have you on board as a member of our exclusive platform. As you may know, the Friendship Triangle is Twitch's only two-dimensional, triangle-shaped, friendship access and trickle-down clout, tiered reward system. Today you have an amazing opportunity to join the base level of the Friendship Triangle system. Once you are part of the community, you'll have the ability to rise through the ranks and achieve higher levels of access and rewards. One way to do this is by gifting subscriptions to your fellow members or by inviting your friends and family members to join our community. As you ascend the tiers, you will be exposed to a range of new and exciting benefits, such as exclusive content, advanced features, and access to our elite community members. We are confident that you will enjoy all the perks that come with being part of the Friendship Triangle. However, we also want to remind you that not all friends and family members are to be trusted, especially those who may not support your new lifestyle. That's why we encourage you to focus on building meaningful relationships within our community, where you will find like-minded individuals who share your interests and values. If you have any questions or concerns, please don't hesitate to reach out to our team. We are always here to support our members and ensure that your experience with the Friendship Triangle is enjoyable. We're glad that you are considering joining the Friendship Triangle community.
The system
we
works.
look forward to seeing you rise through the Chaos Zone and all the way into the Elite tier.
Use the computer to mark up the size
it's not
of the
a cult.
account.
Not a cult.
There we go.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob
That's that.
to talk you through all
That's
this.
what the community's about. So if that sounds like something you want to be a part of, be a part of, please subscribe to this program today. Again, we got a great show today. It's not just going to be all this weird insular in-joke, which is a joke, by the way. The whole thing about, it's a pyramid scheme. It's not a pyramid scheme. Obviously, it's not. Obviously, it's not.
Use the computer to mark up the size of the account.
This is totally in like an ironic thing. You don't even need to worry about it. Expert capitalist advice. If you made that video play every time someone gifted 20 subs, you'd be a wealthier man. I think someone's only gifted 20 subs, I think, once in the history of this show. Oh boy. Pry Bars, thank you very much for the 2 gifted subs. 3 gifted subs, actually, from Pry Bars. Thank you, Pry Bars. No, it wasn't Squatch. It was like some random person when I was first doing the show came in and just like gifted 25 subs and then dipped one day. It was one of the greatest days of my life. It was earlier on in doing the stream too, and I was like, does that kind of thing happen all the time? Oh my God, I got to keep coming back here. And lo and behold, it does not. Frankster says, thank you for the 11 months tier 1. Thank you, Frankster. Critical Mass, thank you for the 245 friend coin. Wicked Gay Skelter, thank you for the 100 friend coin as well. I appreciate that. Thank you.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
How can I turn this sub into passive income? Well, if you count clout as part of your income, that's how you do it. The clout trickles down. That's how the system works. And thank you very much, Brian, for another gifted sub. Jesus Christ, Brian, thank you. Rob's too modest. I joined the friendship triangle and found $5 in my neighbor's jacket. There we go. That's the kind of thing that can happen for you. I'm just eating my noodles. I'm eating my noodles, and I swear, folks, don't leave. Hang out with me while I eat my noodles, and we're going to have an amazing, interesting show today as we break down a very important breaking story going on in Canada right now and try to get to the bottom of it. Okay? Believe me. They also get the heartfelt appreciation of one Rob Rousseau, which is priceless, I hear. That is true. And as people have seen, if you gift 5 subs or above, it plays a little animation of me dancing. That's fun. And sometimes, every now and then, the most generous chatters can unlock the extremely rare and incredible 10 sub alert, which plays sometimes, and it's very magical. That was a really bad way of selling that. We got a Canadian coup going on, a maple coup. These are the noodles. It's like this spicy ramen bowl. It looks like a Shin ramen, but it's not. It's the same kind of color as the Shin ramen, but it isn't. I don't think, anyways. It's good though. Very spicy. I added an egg in there as well. I'm forcing this. We're calling it the poutine. Okay, I guess that works. That works for me. I think maple coup might be better. So, 50 seconds left in this hype train, folks. Do we hear level 4? You know, I always do. It is always nice. I'll tell you from my perspective.
Use the computer to mark up the size of the account.
Thank you, Sharpie Diesel, for the 500 friend coin. Thank you. And thank you, Diego, for the gifted sub.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old
Thank
Rob
you, Diego.
to,
very much appreciated. Cool J, congratulations for the AEW tickets. That's cool.
We simply use the computer to mark up the size of the account.
Risk Inverse, thank you for the 200 friend coin as well. I will say, folks, from my perspective, you know, it's nice sometimes when you're doing the stream to just get that sub goal out of the way early. And then I just don't have to mention it again. That's really an ideal situation for me. I know it's for, if you're watching, you know, it's not necessarily you don't have the same kind of like values or goals as I do. I understand that. I'm just saying though, if you find it obnoxious to hear me kind of like do the various like collection plate pass around segments that I have to do every now and then, it's always good to just get that out of the way, and then I don't even have to fucking mention it again. And we can just focus on the important and serious journalism and commentary. We can just focus on the important journalism and commentary, folks. Isn't that better? Isn't it better to do that? I think it is.
You can count on me. You're gonna have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Oh my.
Oh my. You can count on me. You're gonna have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Anonymous gifter.
You can count on me. You're gonna have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
The most as I often say, the most Christ-like. The most Christ-like of all sub-gifters, the anonymous gifter.
All this.
They don't want any credibility. They don't want any credit.
You can count on me. You're gonna have good old Rob.
They don't need the credit. They don't need the shout out. They don't need the accolades. It's just pure generosity. It's just pure generosity, folks. Good old
Rob to talk you through all this.
Thank you very much, anonymous gifter, for the 5 gifted subs. And thanks, Mudge is my pug, for the tier 1 sub as well. Thank you. Mudge is my pug. I bet if that's a reference to your dog, Mudge the pug, which is what it sounds like, I'm sure Mudge is extremely adorable.
You can count on me. You're gonna have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Wow, an anonymous gifter. Thank you for a gifted sub to Senator Bernie Sanders. Is that I wonder if that's the official. That is the official Bernie Sanders account. Bernie Sanders now subbed to the stream. So if Bernie's ever on Twitch and he wants to use an Enver's Hoja emote, he's now has the ability to do so. Congratulations to Bernie Sanders. He may have come up short in his campaigns for president, unfortunately. He didn't come up short in joining the Friendship Triangle, 2-dimensional, triangle-shaped.
You can count on me. You're gonna have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Trickle-down clout and friendship access tiered reward system.
You can count on me. You're gonna have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Thank you, anonymous gifter, also for gifting a sub to the Central Intelligence Agency. Now sub to the stream as well. And thank you, Socialist Audiophile, for gifting a sub as well. Thank you.
You can count on me. You're gonna have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
And anonymous gifter also gifting a sub to Henry Kissinger as well. Very nice. Very nice. Oh, that was very good. It's really good, this ramen. Very spicy.
You can count on me. You're gonna have good old Rob
spicy and delicious.
Talk you through all this.
And thank you, Socialist Audiophile, for another gifted sub. Folks, we're one generous chatter away to get to the sub goal, and then I will move off this, and I won't mention another goddamn word about it. This is my promise to you. Oh boy. That's very good. My nose is running a little. My eyes are a little watery. That's very spicy. Fantastic. Rob's bosses are finally getting money from the stream and aren't only investing in it. That's right. And are we being watched? I don't know. I don't think so. I am talking about some deep state intelligence community secretive shit today. I'm blowing the roof off their pathetic little attempt at cooing the Justin Trudeau government. So maybe they're coming in here making their presence known. See, if you're able to get this out of the way now, that's like 3.5 hours of slub slinging free content. Exactly. That's my whole point, you know? It's nice. Yeah, it's you just get that whole part out of the way, and you move on to doing important and serious commentary. I love you, but the Expos. Well, I am in Montreal. Buddha's still dead. I am in Montreal, even though the Expos aren't here anymore. And I did get this hat. As many of you know, I got it for free, along with a purchase of hot dogs. You see the hot dog logo there on the side. Never thought we'd get to the protect small Justin phase of Rob. Well, you know what? I'm going to call... If I see the deep state trying to coup somebody, I'm going to call it out whether I like them or not. I think it's important to talk about it. I mean, that's the absurd thing.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Thank you, Anonymous Gifter, for giving a sub to John Bolton as well. This is the absurd thing about this. Is like, if this is happening as we're describing, this whole deep state coup that's going on in Canada right now, for not being tough enough on China, I think it would be actually hilarious, considering the fact that the Liberals have tried to bend over backwards to be dutiful, subservient junior partners to the American foreign policy establishment. So it would actually be genuinely kind of funny, as even though the fact that they've gone to great lengths to do everything that they're told by their bosses in the U.S. government, they're still like, no, it's not enough. It's not good enough. We're still gonna coup you. We're still gonna get your ass. There's something kind of funny and poetic about that. Have I been on for a while? Just about 40 minutes. Just about 40 minutes, old Dutch. I just got started a little bit early today. You're a French Canadian? I mean, listen to me talk. I'm not French Canadian. I do have French ancestry. My name is French, obviously, but I'm an Anglophone, though.
You can count on me. You're gonna have.
As you can tell, because I don't talk like this. I don't have the Quebecois accent. No. Not my password. Thank you for the tier 1 sub. I really appreciate that. I love seeing new community members subscribe to the channel. And remember, I got some really incredible emotes. So if you're just joining the community, you get some of the very best emotes on this entire platform. I'll move on now. I think we're close enough that I can comfortably move on. Thank you again, everyone, for supporting the stream and for tuning in, and thanks to Lucid and to Left Flank Vets for the raids. Very cool. I think I'm gonna blow my nose before I do anything here. This soft coup shit is so obvious and very funny to see all the parties trip over themselves to hate China more. I was saying, old Dutch, like I was talking about our media class, but for the political class as well, you know. But for our journalists, like there's the Canadian, our pathetic, fucking bankrupt Canadian journalist class. They're just this is the best thing that's ever happened to them. They all get to pretend that they're like important now. They all get to pretend that they're part of some cool like spy game thing. They're just having a blast with it. So let's get into this. Let's get into this. What I'm going to do first, folks, is just put on some kind of like a whatever CBC is saying about this. Just throw that on so we can kind of reorient ourselves, just like paying it, like to see what the story's about for the folks that are just joining us that aren't immersed in this like craziness. So I'm going to put on that video and I'm just going to go like blow my nose because that spicy ramen was very tasty, but it, you know, I got watery eyes and sniffly nose now from the spicy ramen. Yeah, we got to get into the liberal mind zone. That's right. What if intelligence agencies do this not to coup politicians, but to make little busy boxes for journalists to play with? That's part of it as well, too, right? You're just giving them a little catnip to throw around. I mean, if not for TRRS, I would have no idea about this story. Yeah, and like that's one of the things that I, usually in these moments, I think it's important to talk about Canada for people that are not from here. And if you're, it's part of this narrative, this shift, the ratcheting up of tensions against China, the new Red Scare, the new Cold War. America is pivoting for like direct confrontation with China. They're trying to escalate things in Taiwan. They're trying to turn Taiwan into the next Ukraine. And this is part of that story. And Canada is getting the message that it needs to get on board and it can't sit on the fence. And if you do sit on the fence, then bad things are going to happen. And as I pointed out at the very beginning of this program, we're going to go back to this point again multiple times throughout the episode today. But if you're in Canada and you're a journalist or you're whatever, just paying attention to this story and you're really legitimately concerned about Chinese interference in our democracy or in our political system, and you're ignoring the obvious reality that it's the fucking United States of America is the actual country that has this massive amount of influence on our democracy and on our culture and society, you basically they're completely hopeless. I don't know. I have no hope for you. You can never figure any of this shit out. I've been covering this story for a couple weeks, but now it's really ratcheting up in intensity. There's new stuff that dropped just yesterday. Which is explosive. Highly explosive. Let me just find something to put here. Yeah, left flank. That's rated in from the TikTok CEO hearing, for sure. And it's crazy how much the potential that has to backfire too. People love TikTok.
We begin in Ottawa, and the investigation.
People absolutely love TikTok. There's so many Americans using TikTok and Canadians. I'm just gonna blow my nose and get oriented. Let me put this on, and I'll be right back. Thanks again, everyone, for tuning in and for supporting the stream. Really, thank you. Thank you. It really means a lot. Thank you.
Into China's alleged meddling in Canadian elections. Just last hour, we saw a major reversal.
Ms. Telford is volunteering to come before the committee, so hopefully that puts other members' minds at ease. It's important that we're able to get to the heart of this matter, find out what Ms. Telford knew, when she knew it, and what the government did in response to that knowledge.
The Prime Minister's office now says Chief of Staff Katie Telford will testify before a Commons committee. That comes just ahead of a vote today on a Conservative motion that would have compelled Telford to appear. And the CBC's Janice McGregor is watching this story for us from our nation's capital. Okay, walk us through what's happened.
Right, because there's an awful lot of moving pieces here, so stay with me. That committee you were just seeing, Procedure and House Affairs, has just adjourned. I can tell you, in the end, it was unanimous, a motion to have Katie Telford appear. Imagine, so they had filibuster, multiple meetings where the Liberals were not letting them proceed to a vote to call on Katie Telford once the New Democrat on the committee, which has changed again, by the way, a different New Democrat than we saw when they were last meeting in the chair. Nevertheless, they sort of weren't allowing this to go through. And then she stepped forward and said, well, actually, I will. And then, boom, unanimous. They've agreed to have her appear for 2 hours, not necessarily alone. She might have some other officials with her. That's the wording as they amended it. And I can tell you the motion suggests it will be between April 3rd and the 14th. So not something that will be happening amid the Biden visit at the end of the week, the budget early next week. It would be kind of after all that, which is great because there's an awful lot going on in this town right now. But why? What was the thing that kind of shook this loose and caused this sort of reversal of position? I think that is what we are watching the hallway outside Cabinet to have explained, because, as recently as a few hours ago, we had no indication from the Liberals that they were going to step back from this point. But we did hear from Jagmeet Singh, their partner in a confidence and supply.
Right, happening right before the Biden visit, I don't think is a coincidence either. Right?
Deal to frankly stay in power in this minority government. And he laid it out pretty plainly earlier this morning look, Telford needed to appear. If they weren't going to call public inquiry, they needed to stop obstructing on at least this point as it pertained to parliamentary committees. Here's Jagmeet Singh from earlier.
If the Liberal government, if Justin Trudeau doesn't stop
Thanks, Jagmeet.
the obstruction that's going on in committee, if Justin Trudeau doesn't allow his chief of staff to testify, we will force him to do so by voting with the opposition day motion. We want to make it very clear that we believe in doing everything possible to make sure Canadians have their questions answered.
So that vote will still go ahead on the main motion.
What is it they say about social democracy again?
Yesterday, interesting.
Something about social democracy. It's objectively the moderate wing of fascism, something along those lines. Can't remember who said that. One, but important to remember.
Interesting to see how the NDP votes on that motion, given what we now know happened at committee. Will they still vote with the other opposition parties? And that particular motion would have had Telford appear at a second committee, the Ethics Committee. It was Procedure and House Affairs, remember, that we were talking about, that just passed a motion to have her appear. So will she be at one committee or two? We'll see what happens to that vote later on this afternoon and what the NDP decide to do with that. But I'm just going to read you a statement from Telford's offer, I guess you can say, to appear. Again, reminding everybody that foreign interference shouldn't be a partisan issue, notwithstanding this entire thing we've been going through for the last 24 hours. But listen to this. She says, while there are serious constraints on what can be said in public about sensitive intelligence matters in an effort to make Parliament work, Ms. Telford has agreed to appear at the Procedure and House Affairs Committee as part of their study. Agreed to appear at PROC, the committee where the motion just was, not necessarily at Ethics, which is what the motion up for voting this afternoon would have compelled her to appear at. So a lot going on here, but important to remember, it's not like she can come and kind of open the books on classified documents, right? There is another separate process already laid out by this PMO to sort of deal with the actual intelligence stuff that they didn't want to become a partisan football and that we can't be discussing in the public domain.
And interesting to see how things will go this afternoon, too, with that vote, given what we heard from the NDP leader. Now, while actually Jagmeet Singh was speaking and sort of giving that condition.
I don't even know if this is, I think this is from yesterday, which is not, there was a story last night that dropped on this, which is reignited this discussion, dude. It's gotten to a fever pitch now. It's gotten turned into a feeding frenzy here. And we've got our friends of the stream, the two Michaels, figuring prominently into this new wave of discourse that we're going to get to after this. Our two beautiful boys, folks. Our two beautiful boys, the two Michaels. We love them. And China just snatched him up. They snatched him up for no reason at all. Two good, hard-working, salt of the earth Canadian boys. China just for no reason at all snatched him up. And if any of you is named Michael, or if you know a Michael, you got to reach out to them, or you got to make sure you're protected right now, because China's on the rampage. And if your name is Michael, you're not safe, frankly. I don't want to scare anyone or alarm anyone, but you're not safe if you're a Michael. All they ever did was be born a Michael. That's all. That's the only crime they committed. Philomath Mike. Oh no. I would just, honestly, Mike, I would just go into the basement and just chill out there until this is all over. Get some saltines and some water. Big jug of water. And make sure you don't come out until this is all over, because this is dangerous territory.
About support for a motion. We also know that the Prime Minister's office was busy sending out the mandate for the Special Rapporteur, David Johnston, who was announced that he would be looking into the allegations of foreign interference into Canada's elections. So we know a little bit more about timeline and what he's going to specifically look at.
Yeah, finally some progress on that front, right? Because that was the other
I would have to check on that, Carrier Wave.
of the Prime Minister and the Liberals' approach to this. They had announced they'd have a special rapporteur, big gap, then we got a name where the terms of reference, big gap again, days go by. We don't know how this is going to work. Finally now, though, and is this to do with the discussions with the NDP on this? I don't know. But they have been forced into a bit more incremental progress here. So I can tell you that they're looking at just the 2019 and 2021 federal elections with this terms of reference. People were wondering the timing, how broad this would be. But this is not country specific. So a lot of the media reports have been about alleged interference by the Chinese Communist Party into Canadian democracy. But this could also deal with accusations from Russia, India, Iran, other countries, right? We know there have been more identified in previous reports about foreign interference. Interesting the timing, because it says that he is to recommend any additional mechanisms or processes, such as including...
Brian, it is funny. I mean, seeing countries that have interfered all over the globe since 1945 now concerned about this. Like, again, to reiterate, this is a story about China, the Communist Party of China, interfering in Canadian democracy. I'd like to remind everyone that Canada is part of something, and indeed helped create something called the Lima Group. The Lima Group, where we sat down with a bunch of reactionary right-wing governments in Latin America and determined who the president of Venezuela is going to be. And we just said, hey, actually, you know the guy that's the president of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro? Guess what? We're saying that it's this totally different guy that has no support and no one voted for. Congratulations to the people of Venezuela. Here's your new leader, Juan Guaido. Canada deeply implicated in that. Is that interfering in someone's democracy, do we think? Is that showing respect for people's sovereignty? I don't know. It's amazing. And when you get into like the absolute nothing burger that this story is based on, it's truly fucking astounding. The best part of all this is that it's inferred that CSIS would not be all over this if they had actual evidence of interference. They have evidence of big bad China interfering, and they just swept it under the rug because of reasons. Well, I mean, Mike, one thing when we've been looking into this, we see that they've been trying to make this a story for a while. They were trying to make this a story 2 years ago, and now it's really just catching fire. Yeah, it's fine when we do it in the global north. That's just being part of the rules-based international order. When you just say, hey, the president of Syria, oh, he doesn't count. Oh, the president of Venezuela, oh, he doesn't count. Oh, the president of Russia, oh, he doesn't count. That's okay, because we're following the rules. Well, who makes the rules? Well, we do. Who has to follow the rules and who doesn't have to? Well, we decide that. Anyway, but when you compare like what the accusations are here versus literally going in and declaring someone else to be the leader of a country where they have no mandate and no support, It's extremely fucking minor in comparison to this brazen act of political interference, which Canada is totally comfortable making.
Public
my music's
inquiry.
still on. Fuck, people got to
remember,
warn me on that.
Could call on the government to do that.
I did
by
not
May
realize my
23rd.
music has been playing this whole time.
So a pretty compressed timeline here for Johnson to consider whether that's necessary.
Yeah, supporting right-wing death squads is nothing compared to this.
Going to identify what they call innovative approaches and improvements in the way agencies work together. So he's being given scope to do that. But significantly, who will he report to? Because again, people were saying, how could he be independent if he's reporting back to the Prime Minister, suggesting maybe we wouldn't really know all of his conclusions, that it could all be kept under the dome? No. Apparently, his reports will also be shared with leaders of the opposition and made available to Canadians. So we're going to have a line of sight on them, even though he obviously won't be able to discuss the specifics of the secure intelligence information that he'll be reviewing to reach these conclusions. All of his work is supposed to be wrapped up by October 31st. Would that be in time for the next federal election? One wonders. But we know this Parliament's going to live to fight another day. It's not all going to descend into chaos over this. They do have a way forward, and we watch now to see what other people say and how this vote goes this afternoon.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
CBC's Janice McGregor in Ottawa.
Dr. Maggot, thank you for the gifted sub. Thank you. Thank you to our friend Dr. Maggot. I appreciate that. Okay, that's the end of that. So that didn't even get into this latest round of discourse that just dropped. Okay, so let's get into this. This is what happened last night. And first, this story, which dropped last night, which I'm sure there's going to be video on soon as well. Here's the story from Sam Cooper, Scooper Cooper. All of this entire story is sourced from a journalist known as Scooper Cooper. Here's the story. Breaking. Liberal MP Han Dong recently advised Chinese diplomat in 2021 to delay freeing the two Michaels. So this is the basic gist of this story, that this Liberal MP either went rogue or, following orders, did some kind of back channel thing to talk to the Chinese Foreign Ministry and apparently urged them to not release the two Michaels until after the election. That is the accusation that's being made here. And we can break that down in a little bit. But that's the accusation that's being made here. First of all, here's the first thing I want to look at. Sam Cooper. Check this shit out. Who's this guy, Sam Cooper? National Investigative Global News. So he's with Global. And look, he's author of this book. Let's check out this book by Sam Cooper called Willful Blindness: How a Criminal Network of Narcos, Tycoons, and Chinese Communist Party Agents Infiltrated the West. This is the hard-hitting investigative journalist that is breaking down this big story here. The author of the... I'm going to just repeat this one more time, actually. I think this subhead is so wonderful that I think I want to repeat it just one more time. Scooper Cooper, author of the book Willful Blindness: How a Criminal Network of Narcos, Tycoons, and Chinese Communist Party Agents Infiltrated the West. So this is the journalist that's breaking this story. He seems to me, I was blissfully ignorant of this person prior to yesterday. Seems to me to someone who has a certain specific agenda that they're trying to promote, and which in fact their entire career is devoted to promoting this idea that, among others, devious Chinese Communist Party agents are infiltrating our society. This is this guy's whole beat. Is the publisher Optimum Publishers? I really don't know. This is the book. That's who's promoting this story, though. So let's get that out of the way right away. This is a journalist who has devoted his whole career to promoting this kind of paranoid, kind of delusional fantasy about these devious foreign agents infiltrating our society and our government. The Mandarins are inscrutable and devious. This is this guy's whole beat. Exactly. Dragon Rising, the Chinese Communist Menace. I don't even know if are you making that up? Are you making that up? I don't even know if you're making that up or if you're looking at his previous published works. I genuinely don't know. So that's who this guy is. So that's the story. And we can also, I would actually like to go to our friend Nora Loretto, who has a thread that broke this down, I think, in an interesting way. Like maybe first we can look at the story or read the piece. Or just maybe take a look at it. Liberal MP Han Dong, who's at the center of Chinese influence allegations, privately advised a senior Chinese diplomat in February 2021 that Beijing should hold off freeing Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor, the two beautiful, precious Michaels, according to two separate national security sources. So number two, that's who's writing the story. And as we've talked about endlessly on this show, as we've been breaking this stuff down, every single source of these allegations is coming from our intelligence community, is coming from CSIS. Every single story. So that is what has left me asking this kind of question. Why is our intelligence community, why is CSIS seemingly engaged in this like full court press propaganda campaign to demonize Chinese Canadian MPs, to suggest that the people in the Chinese diaspora are like brainwashed by WeChat in order to promote CPC goals in our society? You know, these are the questions. These are the questions that this guy's asking. And every single one of these stories is sourced to our intelligence community. So why is our intelligence community seemingly engaged in this full court press propaganda campaign to convince people of this? That not only is the CPC exerting influence on Canadian society through the Chinese diaspora, but also through the Liberal Party and through these Chinese Canadian MPs. And do any of these MPs, this is what's inferred in this commentary, even if they don't directly say this, do these MPs or do the citizens living in the Chinese diaspora, do they have some kind of dual allegiance? That's the sinister question that's being asked. These Chinese Canadian politicians and citizens, what's their real agenda? That's what these people are asking. And that's what our intelligence community is asking through their mouthpieces in Canadian media like this guy. Let's see if I think this should break it down, this video here. I'm glad to see we as a society as a whole never learned from the Cold War. No, on the contrary, it seems like all the Cold War propaganda techniques were learned very well that are being all replicated and duplicated now after maybe taking a few years off.
Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor had been detained in a Chinese prison for nearly 800 days. But while they languished away, Ontario Liberal MP Han Dong allegedly advised a top Chinese diplomat to hold off on immediately freeing them. Two independent national security...
All this shit, too, while they languished away. All this, is this like objective journalist kind of language that they use? While they languished away. Like this is like framing him as being basically an agent of the CPC in this objective news coverage.
Security sources have told Global News that Dong spoke with China's Consular General in Toronto, Han Tao, and suggested to him that if Beijing released the two Michaels, then federal conservatives would benefit. How exactly is not clear.
Yeah, it's not clear because that doesn't make sense.
Initiated the discussion with the Consul
Number
General.
One, that's the biggest hole in this entire ridiculous story. The idea that releasing the Michaels prior to the election would have helped conservatives somehow. How? How would it have helped conservatives? That makes zero sense whatsoever. If the liberals could have shown that they negotiated a release for these guys in the run-up to the election, that seems like it would have helped them. A lot of this kind of is framing this story as a way to say that, like, the CPC, what they want is the liberals to be in power because they're somehow getting the conservatives in power would be no good for them. That's kind of the theme of this, right? With the liberals, they've got this compliant, dutiful government that does whatever they say, but they're scared. They know the conservatives are going to get tough with them. So they're trying to keep those conservatives out of there. That's pretty much what's being inferred here, right? Like, every person with roots in China is a potential Comintern agent. I mean, this is exactly where this is going. And it's making me sick, Carnova, to see the way that our media class is just like gleefully going along with this. Let's continue. We'll watch the rest of this video, but that to me is the part of the story that just makes zero sense whatsoever. Zero sense. The idea that they wanted to extend the detention and that somehow being released prior to the election would help conservatives. I don't understand the logic behind that whatsoever.
Where he also allegedly recommended that Beijing offer some show of progress with the two Michaels cases to help benefit the liberals, according to the two sources.
And if that part true as well, that's just isn't that engaging in basic diplomacy? Isn't that something that every single country does? He talks to his counterpart in the Chinese government and says, like, hey, can you make some progress on this? Like, what, are we supposed to be freeing these two fucking guys, or aren't we? That's the big dangerous scary thing that he did. Allegedly. Talk to the Chinese foreign ministry, is like, let's see some progress on this. That's what all this freaking out is about. Okay.
Dong confirmed to Global News that the conversation took place, but he denied he initiated the discussion and says that he advocated for the two Michaels to be set free. At every opportunity before they returned home, I adamantly demanded their release to Canada without delay, said Dong. Any suggestions otherwise are false and are attempts to mislead you, your readers, and slander me. The two Michaels had been jailed in apparent retribution for Canada's detention of Huawei executive Meng Wanzhou.
And again, I'm going to keep going back to this. Meng Wanzhou. Why was Meng Wanzhou placed in detention in the first place? Because we were told to place her under arrest by the U.S. State Department. Why? Because Huawei had violated some U.S. unilateral sanctions on Iran, which we're not even part of, and which Iran shouldn't even have been under in the first place, considering they went along with the Iran deal in the first place to get out from under those sanctions. America unilaterally canceled the deal, reinstituted the sanctions, demanded Canada lock up Meng Wanzhou, and then China snatched up our guys in retaliation for that. So who's interfering in our democracy there? Who's interfering in our political affairs? Is it China or is it the United States of America? That's the fundamental fact of this case. This whole thing with Meng Wanzhou and the two Michaels started because we did what we were told by the U.S. State Department, because we're basically an arm of U.S. foreign policy. And when they come knocking and tell us what to do, we say, yes, sir. And we do exactly what they tell us. But again, we're worried right now so much about Chinese interference in our politics. Or in other words, who benefits? That's a very good question. Very good question, B-Rat.
For Canada's detention of Huawei executive Meng Wanzhou. But at the time of Dong's conversation with the Chinese diplomat, the Prime Minister had publicly been calling for their release.
This is an issue that is a top priority for us as a country to.
I do, and listen, none of this should be taken as a support of Trudeau or the Liberal Party. I've talked on many occasions how I don't like Trudeau. I don't like the Liberal Party. But what this is doing, though, is calling out this very racist, xenophobic, Red Scare, Yellow Peril propaganda campaign that's going on right now, and asking who's starting this whole thing, where are these stories coming from, who's engaging in it, and who's benefiting from it. It's not about defending Trudeau, but it's about asking what the fuck is going on behind the scenes of this story. And even though I'm not defending Trudeau, I must admit that I thought the beard was a good look for him. I thought that was a good look for him. I don't think he should have moved away from that, personally.
Secure the release of Michael Spavor and Michael Kovrig.
Trudeau's office says the Prime Minister only learned of the conversation with the Chinese envoy after Dong told PMO. But Dong only informed the Prime Minister's team after Global News reached out for comment.
As a Chinese Canadian, I am so proud.
A national security official told Global News that by the time the alleged conversation in February 2021 took place, CSIS had already classified Dong as a close friend of the consulate based on his history of calls. But they had also considered if Dong was acting as a back-channel interlocutor between the Canadian and Chinese governments. The PMO denied that theory, saying at no time was Mr. Dong ever used as a back-channel. Global News has not been able to independently verify.
This is when they do the B-roll, the scary B-roll of the consulate. Look at the bars. Ooh, look at the symbol with the bars. Look at the security cameras and stuff. This is what they love to do, and they talk about this story as well. The spooky B-roll. Ooh, oh, look at the consulate. Ooh, it's so scary.
Verify what was said in the communication between Dong and the Consul General. Last month, Global News reported that Dong allegedly received help from the Chinese consulate in Toronto during his 2019 Liberal nomination meeting in Don Valley North. Allegations Dong denies.
Because of the news story and all the hateful, aggressive comments, death threats coming my way, it does impact constituents in my riding.
We reached out to CSIS for comment on the Dong conversation.
Of course, you reached out to
spokesperson for the
CSIS.
agency said they can neither confirm nor deny the authenticity of the information. Mackenzie Gray, Global News, Ottawa.
So that's the story, okay? So a number of fucked up things about this story. And here, speaking of fucked up, let's take a look at this. This was him last night. Here's the tweet about it, then we can look at the actual statement. Because now Han Dong is leaving the Liberal caucus to sit as an independent. And this from David Cochrane of CBC. In his statement, Dong tells Michael Spavor and Michael Kovrig and their families that he did nothing to cause them harm. He breaks into tears as he finishes his statement and thanks his family and repeats that he is an innocent and loyal Canadian. Now, I would just read that statement, that sentence, and ask yourself, is this a healthy political climate that we've got going on here? And it's not just about this one person. Where do we think this is going? Where do we think this is going? This is just the beginning of this kind of rhetoric and these kinds of accusations being thrown around. Yeah, get ready for a lot more of this. Seriously, unless we speak up against it. No one in our media, in our fucking pathetic, bootlicking, U.S. worshipping and security state loving media class is going to be willing to do that. But let's look at what is happening here and ask ourselves whether we're comfortable with where this is all going. It's scary. We went right from the hashtag Stop Asian Hate to this. Yes, it is about the Michaels. And honestly, if you're part of the Chinese Canadian diaspora, I imagine this is a very scary moment. When this is the kind of this is the way that this discourse and this rhetoric is going. And when MPs and Chinese Canadian citizens are being accused of having this kind of agenda or dual loyalty, it's a fucking scary thing.
Of order, I have informed the Prime Minister and the leadership of the Liberal Party caucus that I will be sitting as an independent at the conclusion of these remarks. Mr. Speaker, I'm in your hands as to what happens next. To all my colleagues in the Parliament, media reports today quoting unverified and anonymous sources have attacked my reputation and called into questions my loyalty to Canada. Let me be clear. What has been reported is false, and I will defend myself against these absolutely untrue claims. But let me assure you, as a parliamentarian and as a person, I have never, and I will never, would never advocate or support the violation of the basic human rights
This is
of
insane.
any Canadian, of anyone, anywhere, period. The accusations are false.
We simply
My family
use the
came
computer to mark up the size of the account.
Thank you, Dimitri. At its core, fascism is an economic rearrangement. It's an international capitalism's response to the challenge of international scientific socialism. Developed from nation to nation out of differing levels of traditionalist capitalism's dilapidation. The common feature of all instances of fascism is the opposition of a weak socialist revolution. Yeah, this is really scary. This is very much Red Scare shit. And my concern as well right now is that we're only scratching the surface. And I really believe that, because we haven't even gone, like, the explosion of tension, the escalation of the Taiwan situation hasn't even happened yet. Like, we're in the very early stages of this. And this is something we've been covering on this show going on 2-3 years. How this has escalated, and it hasn't even come close to escalating to the level that it can. And this is what we're seeing already. It is surreal. Like, it's fucking crazy. And again, folks, all of these accusations are coming from our intelligence community. Every single one of these stories is sourced to anonymous sources in CSIS, in our intelligence community. Why is that happening? That's what we have to ask ourselves. Why is that happening?
The accusations are false. My family came to Canada for freedom. I have had the privilege of being elected to this House, and I believe I have served honorably and pledged to continue to serve honorably and fulfill my oath of office. I will continue to serve the residents of Don Valley North as an independent member of this House. I'm taking this extraordinary step because sitting the government caucus is a privilege, and my presence there may be seen by some.
I mean, Huggins, that's ultimately, I think, what we're getting at here. The State Department likely runs CSIS, gearing up for war versus China. This is the message that's come across, right? No more sitting on the fence. Things are about to escalate even more, and you're going to go on full on board with our full scale Yellow Peril, Red Scare movement, or we're going to come after you. That's certainly what it seems like.
As a conflict of duty, and the wrong place to be as an independent investigation pursues the facts in this matter. I will be sitting as an independent so that business of government, and indeed the business of Parliament, is not interrupted as I work to clear my name and the truth is presented to Parliament and to Canadian people. I am a proud Liberal, and I am proud of the work our government does day in and day out to serve the people of Canada. I also don't want to distract from that important work. Before concluding, I want to assure Mr. Michael Spavert and Mr. Michael Covert and their families that I did nothing to cause them any harm. Like everyone in this House, I worked hard and advocated for their interest as a parliamentarian. The allegations made against me are as false as the ones made against you. To my constituents, I will continue to work on your behalf as your Member of Parliament. To my staff, I thank you. I know the days ahead will be difficult, but I will be there to support you as we continue to serve the people of Don Valley North. To my family, and in particular, my parents, who brought us here to Canada,
ask yourself if you're comfortable with this. Seriously.
To my wife, Sophie, and my kids, I love you. I thank you for all the support and love you give me. The truth will protect us. Our honor and our family will get through this together. Sorry about that. Thank you, Speaker.
And like, again, none of this is to be a defense of Trudeau or the Liberal Party or this guy. This guy seems like a nice man. I don't know. I know nothing about him politically, honestly. I highly doubt that anyone in the Liberal Party is acting as some kind of like fucking double agent for the CPC, which is what's being alleged here. It's not about defending liberals or Trudeau or anyone, or any individual, but it's about recognizing that we have this extremely dangerous situation developing here. It's been developing for a while, and now it's escalating drastically. This extremely dangerous road that we're on right now towards this kind of yellow peril, red scare, paranoia. And this is the result that it's having. Again, this is it's not just going to affect this one MP. They're creating a climate right now where anyone of Chinese descent in Canada is going to have this kind of like dual loyalty or dual allegiance question being asked about them. This leads towards like hearings, internment camps. If you don't think that that's a possibility that we could end up in that place, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. That's obviously an extreme version of like where this road goes, but to think that that's not a possibility, I think would be incredibly foolish. It's about defending human beings, and liberals are part of that, but they're not the focus per se. And it's not even just human beings, but it's like politically, what do we want to do here? What are we doing? Do we want to chain? This is what we're doing right now, and what most people in our media class and our journalism class and in our country seem to want to do, which is continue to chain ourselves to the dying U.S. empire, versus being able to make bilateral ties and encourage diplomacy with this burgeoning global power. What's better for, like, not even Chinese Canadians, but what's better for everyone in this country? What's better for everyone in the world? When it comes to like energy security, when it comes to climate change, when it comes to world peace, should we be going down this path of like antagonizing China over and over and over and over again because the United States told us to? Or should we maybe be forging our own sort of foreign policy identity and making bilateral ties with this country, which is now leading this sort of global movement, leading this global shift in geopolitical power? The smart one, you would be aligning with China. Mexico sees the writing on the wall. Everyone sees the writing on the wall except us, it seems like. Except for these countries that are left in this rules-based international order, this kind of global criminal cartel that we're junior partners of. Everyone else around the world sees the writing on the wall about where things are going. Would you mind linking this video? Yes, I can. It's terrifying, isn't it? For a chain of resource extraction camps to display some kind of backbone when it comes to sovereignty is rather high expectations. Well, I know. Obviously, that's true. But that's why I do think it's important to push back on this narrative. And I know I'm just some fucking guy and I don't get invited to weigh in on these things in our mainstream media. But it's why I think it's important that we don't get fooled by this and we try to interrogate exactly what's going on here and ask serious questions about who's behind this campaign, who's benefiting from it, and ask some real critical questions about whether we want to go down this path that we seem intent on going down right now. And sorry, someone sent this tweet and I can't recall who it was. I apologize. These are the tweets that people are seeing. Look at this. Dalton Williams. Like, if you think that this kind of thing is only going to be targeted towards liberal MPs, I mean, you're sadly mistaken. You know, and then, again, this is just the beginning. The propaganda campaign hasn't even like reached its zenith yet. Not even close.
Offers some.
And like, look at how our media class is just in like a feeding frenzy. The fucking ghouls like Andrew Coyne, Iraq war supporting fucking dronies like Andrew Coyne, going crazy about this. Maybe there's nothing to this. Maybe CSIS got it all wrong. But if there's any truth to it, if a liberal MP advised China to hold on to the 2 Michaels for whatever reason, holy hell. Suppose it's true. Would he have done this on his own? Who else would have known about this? Right? These people in our media class are just absolutely losing their minds over this. They're so excited. You know, it's really scary stuff. And I wanted to look at Nora's thread that's a summary of this. I think Nora did a really good summary of this. To recap, U.S. influence in Canadian politics places Meng Wanzhou under arrest in Canada because her company violated BS U.S. sanctions on Iran. China, likely retaliating, places the 2 Michaels in detention. They picked 2 guys who were doing the kind of business that they could reasonably be called spies, whether or not the charges are spurious. And frankly, I don't think the CPC would have locked these guys up if they didn't have compelling evidence to keep them. These are not just 2 random guys going about their business. What's Terry Glavin say about this? Well, that's an interesting question. It's like, I actually agree with Terry Glavin's analysis of this. Although I haven't seen what he's said specifically about this. But if we talked about Terry a few weeks ago, where he basically pointed out what I think is correctly, that the United States is basically like putting their foot down and inserting themselves into this and being like, no, there's no more fence sitting on this. It's really frustrating to see the anti-China sentiment in our U.S. media. Crazy that it's spreading to Canada. Why not be friendly with the new emerging global power? It's better for every party. And I think that says it all right there, right? Spreading to Canada. It's spreading to Canada because it's happening it's coming from the U.S. And, you know, this xenophobic, yellow peril kind of fear campaign that's being unleashed is being unleashed because the United States has said, like, it's time to ratchet up these kinds of tensions, which says it all about what country actually does interfere with our politics and our society and who doesn't. If you fucking think, as I keep pointing out, if you think China has more of an outsized influence in our politics than the United States or even other countries like Israel, you've got fucking rocks in your brain. Yeah, that wasn't a holy hell of fear. He's smacking his lips, of course. These guys they love this. These security state stenographer losers, they get to pretend that they're these big, like, you know, spy guys now, which they kind of technically are, considering they're doing the work of CSIS and the State Department and the CIA. So the two Michaels become our two Michaels, and their detention is a time where Trudeau tries to rise to the task of being a global leader. A Liberal MP who's also Chinese then tells China's consulate in Toronto to suggest to Beijing that there be progress related to their case to give the governing Liberals a boost, which again is not the idea that that's some kind of fucking crime is a farcical. That's what anyone would do, like anyone in the government, anyone that's trying to act in a kind of diplomatic fashion. But do not release them. That would help the Conservatives. And that's the big question. How? We don't know. We don't know, Nora. We don't know how. None of that makes sense. That's the one part of the story that has zero fucking basis in reality whatsoever. The government is denying that the MP was back-channeling Beijing on their behalf, which does make sense. Why would a random MP speaking through consular officials be a back-channel to anything? And the MP is denying he said these things, instead just that he pressed the consular officials to get the two Michaels released. Anyway, the same CSIS officials who cooked up this story are also saying that Beijing favored the Liberals, probably because they were such good lapdogs for the US in that they arrested Meng. No, wait, that's where none of this actually works. The Liberals, the CPC, there's no material difference when it comes to China. Like I was saying, that's the kind of what's being implied here, right? China doesn't want the Conservatives because the Conservatives are going to get tough, unlike the Liberals who have been so accommodating to the CPC, which is not true. That is just completely farcically, comically wrong to suggest that. The Liberals quite literally have acted as a U.S. lapdog when it comes to either China or Ukraine. We've dutifully done whatever they were told. The idea that that China prefers the Liberals and they're somehow like scared of fucking Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives who are going to get tough with them on this, completely brain dead. Completely brain dead. Anyway, congrats to CSIS, who's figured out how to use global news to be subversive right before Biden lands in Ottawa, as both countries' security apparatuses favor closer ties and do not favor any ties to Beijing. They know that the narrative will just be accepted. And as we're seeing, that is 100% correct. From Nora, it will just be accepted. That's right. And that's exactly what's happening. Ugh. And remember, it's not just the Conservatives. It's not just the Conservatives. And remember, the NDP allied with the Conservatives prior to the election to formally accuse China of doing genocide, which was one thing that was even too far for the Liberals who had nothing to do with that. Now you have Jagmeet Singh saying Conservatives are blocking an NDP motion to vote on the need for a public inquiry into foreign interference. Extra pathetic that Jagmeet Singh is not pushing back on this, considering he himself has been accused of this kind of has been part of these kind of racist campaigns about dual loyalties and dual allegiances as well. And rather than using this moment to maybe push back on that, he's jumping on board. Extremely shitty and pathetic behavior.
About democracy and are deeply concerned about political interference in our system. That's why we force this government to end the obstruction in committee and to allow the Chief of Staff of the Prime Minister to testify, rendering the Conservative motion useless, which is not surprising because they just want to play games. In fact, they are right now, the Conservative Party, blocking our motion to have a vote in this House on a public inquiry. So my question to the Conservative leader, why is he playing games? What does he have to hide? Why won't he stand up? You Democrats care deeply about democracy and are deeply concerned.
Here's Jagmeet again last night. Again, someone who's I got to stop saying again all the time. I think I got it from Dwayne Casey, the Raptors coach, Dwayne Casey. Someone who's been accused by these very same xenophobes and racists for having these kind of dual allegiances, rather than trying to tone down the rhetoric. Instead, he's jumping right on board. These are extremely serious allegations. Again, it's extremely serious allegations coming from the author of Willful blindness, how a criminal network of narcos tycoons and Chinese Communist Party agents infiltrated the West. These are extremely serious allegations. If true, the safety of Canadians was put at risk for political gain. Prime Minister Trudeau must remove Han Dong from caucus, and these allegations must be thoroughly investigated. There must be a public inquiry. So yeah, that's our social the leader of our social democratic party jumping on board this like Red Scare, Yellow Peril campaign rather than trying to take that moment to de-escalate it. Isn't global news? No, global news in Canada is like one of our mainstream media. I mean, it is a quack news website, but it's legitimate though. You know? All main Canadian parties are the same thing in the end. Well, that's right. They're all part of a kind of facade that gives us the idea that we have democratic input into our society and the resource allocation in our country, which is obviously not true. Can we talk about the safety of Canadians being put at risk with climate change, COVID, and Carl and the infrastructure? That's right. This is what we're concerned with at the moment. And I swear, if there is an election soon, this is going to be dominated by it. And that's the thing. It's like this campaign, not only is it dangerous for, anyone that has Chinese heritage in this country, whether they're an MP or not, it also does seem specifically designed to undermine Trudeau. And to, again, suggest that the Conservative Party are the ones that are going to get tough on China. That's kind of the basic what's being inferred here. So if there's an election, will Trudeau even run? Is that going to be the signal for Trudeau to step down and let Chrystia Freeland take over the next election? You know what I mean? Is it a coup coming from the Chrystia Freeland wing? Is it coming from CSIS? But good chance that our election, though, is Freeland versus Polyev versus Jugmeat, with each one scrambling over the other to be more reactionary and more tough on Russia and China and Iran than the other one. That's a good chance of what our election is going to look like. Will Chrystia Freeland even run for leader? Everyone hates her already. I'm sure she will. It's never stopped any other power-hungry crypto-fascist climber. So I don't see why it would stop her. So we've got Justin Poder coming on in just a few minutes. I'm going to send him a link in just a few moments. But we should be able to have a really interesting discussion with him over this. I think Freeland has higher aspirations than that. Yeah, I'm sure she would love to go work for NATO. Yeah, exactly. Okay, I'm just gonna put on one more video. I'm gonna get just another little bite to eat here, and they'll be ready to go. This is from 2 weeks ago. Again, this story has been going on for a while.
We know.
Remember, it's not just about MPs. This is how the CPC exerts influence by using its brainwashed Chinese Canadian citizens as well. This is all being promoted by CSIS and by our mainstream media.
That Chinese Canadian parliamentarians and Chinese Canadians in general are targets, greater targets for interference by China than others. And we get updated regularly on how we can make sure that our integrity and that the work that Canadians do to serve in politics is done with full protections.
Okay, so we know the Chinese government has attempted to interfere in Canada's elections, but how exactly does it do it, and how deep does it go? Sherry Wong is the executive director of Alliance Canada Hong Kong. Her group authored the report In Plain Sight, Beijing's Unrestricted Network of Foreign Influence in Canada. Sherry Wong, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
We're talking a lot about foreign interference and what it looks like in elections. What does foreign interference look like for you and the people you spoke to?
First of all, it is nonpartisan and happening at all levels of government. So we see actually more intensified forms of foreign influence in elections at the municipal and school board level than federal and provincial levels.
So we're focusing on the federal level, but it's happening at the much lower levels in government. It's that pervasive.
Absolutely. I think state actors are taking advantage of the lack of awareness at the lower levels of government. And frankly, less resources could be mobilized for a much more impactful campaign at the lower levels of government.
What does it look like? The conversation has been about how the diaspora, how Chinese Canadians are really directly targeted by agents of the regime in Beijing. What does it look like for people?
It ranges anywhere from disinformation and misinformation campaigns.
I was really muted. I was muted there. Wow. I just was saying, as usual, though, the experts we bring on to discuss this and talk about this dangerous threat are part of the sort of like diaspora, these diasporic elements that are elevated by these kinds of think tanks, which promote this very specific perspective, pro-imperialist perspective. In this case, the Alliance Canada Hong Kong, a nonpartisan national campaign plan driven by pro-democracy Hong Kongers in Canada. These are the folks that get brought onto our mainstream media to usually a part of that diaspora to tone down these kind of accusations of xenophobia and yellow peril. You know? As usual, I want to find the funding. I always want to look at these. I'm looking at the Alliance Canada Hong Kong.
We simply use the computer to mark up the size of the account.
Yeah, that's right. That's how these immigrants are just weaponized in order to advance this, in this case, this xenophobic kind of Red Scare narrative. I'm sending over a Zoom invite to Justin Potter right now. So just give me one moment. I'm just going to keep this on. This is from 2 weeks ago.
Social media like WeChat, Weibo, but it also looks like key influencers and community leaders mobilizing for specific candidates for support or sabotage.
And that's just in the election period, you mean? Support, like they will rally behind a preferred candidate or actively work against a non-preferred candidate?
Absolutely, but it's also happening outside of election cycles. A lot of the mobilization and the community work is being done outside of election campaigns. And once the writ drops, they're able to quickly mobilize for specific campaigns or candidates.
We've heard reports about pressure on individuals, intimidation, maybe of family members back home in China. What's your experience with that? What have you seen and heard about that phenomenon?
Well, hold on.
The threats and harassment and intimidation are very real against diasporic members, but those are the most extreme forms of control. There are other forms of control like social pressure, like having a business deal for your business if you show support for a specific candidate. So we have to be very careful, but also detailed in our examination of these foreign influence tactics. Not all of them fall strictly in a legal or illegal framework.
Right, so it's like a carrot and stick thing. If you're on the right side of an issue, maybe your business gets a contract, maybe it gets something, and if you're on the wrong side of it, you get excluded from it, that kind of thing?
Absolutely, and it is a very popular tactic, and what the diaspora would often describe as relationships, 关系, how one can build a relationship through acts of loyalty or acts of support.
On the intimidation and the threats, you called that the extreme end of it. How common would that be, for example? Because we have tried, and you and I spoke about this before the interview, we've tried to get people to come on the show to talk about this, and people are afraid because of family consequences, because of the business consequences.
Maybe they just don't agree with being used as part of this propaganda campaign.
Overt, say, threat?
Maybe that has something to do with it.
Oh, well, I'm showing my face here today, so that threat is very real for me. But I think it needs to be clear there is a climate of fear that already exists. So many diasporic members don't even make it to the consideration of whether or not to speak up. They have
Where is this climate of fear coming from?
They have chosen to be silent.
Where is this climate of fear coming from? You know, perhaps there's the idea that the Chinese diaspora doesn't feel comfortable commenting on this because they don't want to be weaponized in this exact same way and used as part of this racist and xenophobic propaganda campaign. You know, maybe that has something to do with it. Anyway, as always, like when these conversations come up and people want to talk about the dangers of this situation, they say, well, listen to the Chinese diaspora, listen to them. And who are the people that we're supposed to listen to? And it's inevitably every single time someone that's linked to these think tanks or NGOs, which are promoting a very specific pro-Western narrative, whether it's about Hong Kong or Tibet or Xinjiang or whatever. Which is why I appreciate when Vijay Prashad talks about this. You know, we got to listen to the Indian people, listen to the Chinese people. But who, though? Which ones? Which ones do we want to listen to? We want to listen to Chinese people that promote a very specific narrative that does not in any way challenge our role in upholding global imperialism. Okay, we've got Justin Porter joining us. So just give me one sec here. Let me just figure out the... Just one moment. Hello, Justin. Are you there? You hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. I'm trying to do this without headphones. Okay, so folks, Justin Porter is joining us on the show. Justin's an anti-imperialist author, podcaster, and blogger. Justin, I'm actually really happy that we were able to get in touch because I read I've been talking about this story for a little while now.
Okay.
It's been ramping up in intensity over the last couple of weeks, as you know. And
yeah,
I read
reached
your piece.
reached my threshold last week.
Yeah, and I read your piece on Substack called "Multiculturalism is Over in Canada. It's Back to Xenophobia." So obviously you've been paying attention to this story as well, which we've seen now really escalate over the last 48 hours or so, with these new revelations coming out last night about Han Dong and this kind of whole suggestion that he was engaging in some kind of back channel diplomacy with the CPC. So I guess that's the climate that we're operating under right now. So I was just wondering, about this piece you wrote last week. Like, what is your general thoughts about this kind of trend in our discourse and our political and media discourse when it comes to China and Canadian relations?
Yeah, man, this is really something because I have low expectations of the media here for sure, but this is they're really reaching new lows. I mean, I was in the article I wrote. I was kind of I was kind of impressed with one of their moves where, you know, when Trudeau. So I don't know how much your listeners. I assume your listeners are just following the story like you are, but it all starts with these leaks from this anonymous secret CSIS leaker, probably racist in the employ of the U.S. I don't know. Should we feel bad about defaming someone who's defaming?
I don't personally, so you can go to town.
Who's engaging in defamation behind a cloak of anonymity? You know, what's he going to do? Is he going to charge us with defamation? I'm not a racist. Anyway, maybe that'll happen. Who knows? So the racist guy in CSIS who's leaking this information, he starts off by saying the Chinese interfered in the election of 2021, and they say, you know, we've seen this top secret memo, as if that's, you know, as if that gives it credibility. It actually, if it made any, if any of the story made any sense, the fact that it was a top secret memo or top secret something shouldn't give it credibility, right? It should give it less credibility because it's not open source. You can't see where it comes from. You don't know why people believe it. You just have some jerk somewhere in Ottawa making stuff up, and because it's secret, we're supposed to believe it. You know, if you've ever done any, if you've ever been to school, you know, I learned, I went to school for science, you know, I studied physics. So there's a whole thing of like, you know, showing your work. You know, when you do a math equation, you show your work, you show the variables, you show the equation, you show how you came up with the conclusion. So there's no showing your work here. There's no evidence. There's just top secret information. And they said that the Chinese interfered in an election. I don't even, you know, I feel stupider the more details I repeat of the story, yes. You know, but it's like they bust somebody, they paid for buses for somebody to go and vote somewhere or something, this guy. So that's the claim. But then when Trudeau said, this was I thought was really clever on their part, because Trudeau said, well, you know, you're not allowed to leak top secret information, so we're going to have to look into who this leaker is. Then, just after he said that, there was a leak. There was a new leak about the Trudeau Foundation and how the Trudeau Foundation actually took Chinese money too, actually. So it's this this leaker, you know, when I was thinking today about WikiLeaks, you know, Manning's leaks, you know, that Chelsea Manning suffered for immensely, went to jail. You know, Snowden lives in exile for this information that he leaked. Julian Assange is in jail. They're trying to kill Julian Assange. But all of their leaks have something in common. Snowden, you know, tried to do it this way. They all provided the entire trove of documents, and then everybody can look at them and figure, you know, WikiLeaks did some harm reduction to make sure nobody would be able to be identified. So to protect US secret agents, basically. WikiLeaks engaged in this harm reduction before they finally published it, but they published everything. You could go and look. You can go now. You can go and look at the Cablegate cables, the Afghan War Diary, the Iraq War Diary. You can see, you know, you can compare whether it makes sense what they were writing. You know, does it sound like the US? Does it sound like, you know, when they report that they were in a meeting with a foreign leader, does it sound like the foreign leader? Does it sound like something they would say? You can compare all of these notes. You can compare to what was published in the newspapers at that time, if you were following the Iraq War, the Afghan War. Here, there's just they're calling it a drip. And every time there's some chance that this racist guy in CSIS is going to get in trouble for breaking the law, there's a new drip of some new information, which turns out to just justify what he's done, right? Well, yeah. I mean, you know, maybe it's illegal, but gosh, if they really did interfere in the election, or if Trudeau Foundation is really taking money, or if what's the other one? What's the new one? The new one is apparently he told China to keep the Michaels longer And of course, China, this country of 1.3 billion people, needs to hear from a politician in Canada before they make their decision about what they're going to do.
A low-level MP in Canada is really like dictating to them.
They were just like, holy shit, yeah, thank God you told us that. Like, now we know what strategy to pursue in our geopolitical conflict, in our attempt to try to get this lady that Canada kidnapped back. Like, yeah, we want to listen to you, Canadian government official who kidnapped Meng Wanzhou. We want to hear from you about what you think we should do. The story is so bad. Like the plausibility of it is so like the number of things you have to not know to believe this. You have to not know how China works. You have to not know how Canada works. You have to not know how diplomacy works. And then you have to be willing to believe all kinds of stuff about Chinese.
And I think a centerpiece of this current story that's being released right now, and I was talking about this earlier, but which is I think the most absurd thing of all, which is that the allegation that's being made here is that this Liberal MP said, okay, so wait till after the election to release the two Michaels, because if you don't, that's going to help the Conservatives. Which just on its face does not make sense in any way. The idea that the Michaels being released prior to the election would have led to some big boon for the Conservative Party. I don't understand that allegation at all.
Yeah, because the Liberals you would think the Liberals would have benefited because they would have been the ones who had brought her home or brought them home. Sorry. Yeah, that's a tough one to understand.
That's like you're saying.
I wonder why he wrote it that way. I mean, like what we should analyze these pieces using within the conventions of the genre in which they were written, which is to say, as fiction. We should apply the tools of literary analysis to this, and we should think about the authorial intention. Why would the author bring the Conservatives into it? I mean, I assume that the authors have some kind of, they're trying to get Conservatives interested in the story, right? I mean, anybody who hates Trudeau, anybody who hates the Liberals is going to be the audience for a story about how Liberals are in the pocket of China. So maybe it's just to try to appeal to the Conservative.
Yeah, well, it definitely seems designed to appeal to Conservatives because it's suggesting that somehow the CPC is just, they're just so scared of Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives and how they're going to get tough with them that they need those Liberals in charge, those compliant Liberals. Otherwise, Pierre Poilievre is going to get in there and start telling them what's what.
That's the most terrifying prospect for China, I think.
I'm sure President Xi stays up nights thinking about Pierre Poilievre.
Oh no,
terrifying
Pierre Poilievre, no.
Yeah.
No, don't.
No, it's just bizarre.
Yeah, that's a weird one. But yeah, I mean, it's true, and but I guess Poilievre and I mean now to an increasing extent, Jagmeet as well are being pretty good allies of CSIS on this file. The longer it goes.
Well, no, absolutely, they're going right along with it, along with our entire sort of media class who I've been talking about. They just love this, like these dipshit Canadian stenographers who basically they go to these security conferences and they take their marching orders from CSIS and from whoever else, and they just go write little memos basically outlining what these people want them to say to people. They can't get enough of this. This is like they get to imagine that they're part of some kind of Tom Clancy kind of plot here.
I was a TA at Toronto Metro University's journalism school about 19 years ago. And, reporting convention, journalistic practice is to verify sources, and there's different levels of sources, but like, this is not the highest, this is the lowest. An anonymous source with no verification is the lowest form of source, like in any field. Like journalism, we have to go with pretty low quality sources. It's not like science where you have to you publish the data as well. You show the methods by which you gathered the data. You should be a scientist working with the same methods and the same materials should be able to reproduce the experiment, right? That's the standard in science. In journalism, you can't have that. You're trying to get the story out faster. You're trying to cover things that are of public interest, but it's like the tests for journalistic rigor are just not being passed. They're being like they're not just failing, they're flouting. They're flouting it. They're making a mockery of it. Like it's like a joke. It's like you have an anonymous source, and then like the question of the public interest, like the whole idea that the public interest is served because if this was true it would be bad. Like,
yeah,
by that, like, let's think about the logic of that. So we have to report anything that would be bad if it was true? Like,
yeah.
Can you imagine the free reign for defamation? The free for all of defamation that we would be facing if reporters followed that standard?
And I think that's one of the amazing things as well, that they're suggesting somehow that, okay, well, first of all, the fact that all the sources for this story are all anonymous CSIS sources, and then when you turn into CBC or Global News or whatever that's doing like a TV hit piece on this, and they'll be like, let's bring on some experts to weigh in on the story. Here's the former director of CSIS and another former director of CSIS. These are the two different sources that they bring on to comment on this.
Who
like
it's certainly
unbelievable
know
to
the
me.
leaker, right? Like there's no way this. I don't know CSIS. CSIS might be big, but like the country is not that big, and like if they were the director, they probably know who this is. So it's all theater, right? Where they come on and they pretend like they don't know or whatever. I mean, I guess they did some kind of. Somebody told me, I didn't see it, but somebody told me. There was some kind of a article or set of articles in the Globe where they were trying to kind of issue like why he did it, why he's really a good patriot, and why he should be prosecuted for breaking the law and leaking. Yeah, tell me about that, because I only have so much stomach to look into this at a time. So
I read the whole piece by the anonymous leaker that came out. It's so
the leaker
sanctimonious.
wrote an article.
Yeah,
wrote an article.
Wrote an op-ed being like, I don't. I promised that I would sacrifice to defend my country and democracy, and I'm doing what's right. This totally self-aggrandizing, sanctimonious thing. I don't know. It was extremely painful to read.
But not. He's not sacrificing so much that he's willing to put his name on it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's the other, I think, bizarre thing about this story, because the inference here is that the Liberal Party have somehow been soft on China, or they haven't been antagonistic enough, when the opposite of that is true. Like at every turn, Trudeau and the Liberals have been
soft on China.
At every turn, Trudeau and the Liberals have been dutiful lapdogs of the U.S. foreign policy establishment, who they told us to lock up Meng Wanzhou for violating those sanctions on Iran, which we have nothing to do with.
Which we don't even have.
And the sanctions were illegal in the first place. That's what kicked off this whole thing. So for number one, the idea that Trudeau has been, has been working with the CPC, or has not been adversarial or towards them, is factually untrue. And then also in that story, it's clear which country is the one that's exerting political influence over Canada, over our foreign policy and our democracy. It's not China. It's the fucking United States of America. That's the obvious truth here that everyone doesn't seem to be willing to acknowledge.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not, it's an interesting thing, because it's like, it's a coded language. It's kind of like a coded racial language where foreign doesn't include the US, and it doesn't include Israel either, for that matter.
No.
Like those are us. So even though like it's a different passport and it's a different citizenship, and you pay your taxes to a different thing, like those aren't foreign, right? And so it's it's not that they don't know. It's not that they're pretending, but it's not exactly something they can say. That, you know, like we all know China's not a different country the same way that the US is a different country, right?
Exactly.
There's different countries and then there's different countries. There's foreign and then there's foreign. So yeah, I mean, the way that it's also interesting to see the way that the media gets around those kinds of things that everybody knows, but you're not supposed to say.
Yeah.
Like,
well, our Canadian journalism class, they're experts at this, right? Using this kind of language.
Yeah. Like the Israel thing is it's just hilarious. They're actively, every party has like very active vetting to know whether a candidate has said so, not just now, like there's no question of having a pro-Palestine candidate openly in one of the major parties. Like, but it's like, did they ever, as a student activist, maybe tweet something that was like maybe pro-Palestine? And then it's like, well, you know, we've got to make sure we've got a clean house. We got to make sure that those people don't get anywhere near power. What is that? Like, what is that? That is modifying the rules of the political system on behalf of a foreign state, the foreign state being Israel in this case. Like that's accepted. That's not even controversial. Like to do otherwise than that would be to entertain anti-Semitism and, you know, endanger our allies or threaten the existence of Israel, which Canada's committed to, like whatever, however they want to do it. Like they understand and accept fully that Canada's job is to, like, one of the important functions of Canadian political system is to ensure that nobody that isn't pro-Israel is anywhere near power. And that's okay.
Yeah. Well, not only is it okay when places like Israel openly interfere or the United States openly interfere in our democracy and our political system, it's also okay when Canada sets up the Lima Group in South America and declares some random guy to be the president of Venezuela who has no support and who no one voted for.
Yeah. And
so
when England
we ignore
steals
our own
their
role
gold.
we ignore our own role in indeed interfering in the democracy of other countries all around the world, which we do constantly.
And I mean, we're about to do another big one, right? Because Biden is coming, or has come. I don't know. Biden's coming. And then the big agenda is that Biden's going to ask Canada to go occupy Haiti again, I think. And for people that don't know, there was once upon a time an elected government in Haiti under Aristide that was trying to, you know, do horrible things like get people one meal a day and raise the minimum wage. And then he was blocked at every turn from accessing finance and from being able to fulfill this program. And so at one point in desperation, Jean-Bertrand Aristide mentioned the fact that France still owes Haiti probably the equivalent of $40 billion today, because they extorted the value of the property that France lost when Haiti had a revolution in 1804. And the property that France lost was the slaves. So France made Haiti pay, and the Americans made Haiti pay back the value of the property that France lost over about 150 years. And Aristide mentioned that actually is still owed back to Haiti. And at that point, France started moving towards overthrowing Aristide, and with, of course, Americans in the lead. And Aristide was overthrown in 2004. And Canada, France, and America were the three powers that overthrew Aristide. And Canadian troops secured the airport. And in the initial 2 years of the occupation, it was before the United Nations took over in 2006. It was Canada, France, and the US that were there. But, you know, again, is that a indictable offense? Is anybody in Canada gonna pay for for overthrowing Haiti's democracy? I mean, don't be ridiculous. That's a ridiculous question. That's a stupid question.
Of course, yeah.
That's a stupid question. That's not an intelligent question like the ones that are being asked in the Canadian media. Like, why isn't Han Dong in jail yet? Those are the intelligent questions. Why not a public inquiry?
Yeah, no, it's enough to make you feel like you're losing your mind when you pay attention to these historical trends and then compare it to what our media talks about. And so you see in what you're describing, you see how Haiti's still being punished to this day for a successful slave revolt long ago. And you see Canada's role as this kind of junior partner in Western imperialism, either in Haiti or Venezuela or Ukraine, where we've been a central part of the destabilizing Ukraine and funding these proxy wars there over the last 10 years as well.
Ukraine's a great one. Ukraine's a great one because what was it yesterday? I mean, again, the China story, the Chinese leader, Xi Jinping, went to Moscow. They did a big pomp and ceremony, 3-day long meeting with many hours of talks. And a lot of people expected a lot of this. It turned out not to be the case, but a lot of people, I think, expected Xi Jinping to go to Putin and say, here's our peace plan. Will you take it? And then Putin would say, why, yes, I will. And then Xi Jinping would take it to Ukraine and be like, this is your final offer kind of deal, right? But none of that happened. As it happened, I gather, Xi Jinping said, here's our peace plan. And Putin said, no, thanks. But there was that day that they were talking about it. And our foreign minister in Canada said, the headline was priceless. The headline was, Canadian foreign minister says peace talks are a threat to Ukraine or something, or peace talks.
Well, they threatened to prolong the war.
Yeah, that's it.
Not prolonging the war, though, is sending billions of dollars worth of weapons to one side of the war. That's what doesn't prolong it. Yeah.
Peace talks threaten to prolong the war. That's what she said. I love that. Was really good. And then it turned out she also said something about how Putin had to go or something, right? Like, we're working towards regime change in Russia or something. She said something along the lines of like, of course, one of Canada's objectives is regime change in Russia or something. And then the International Criminal Court indicted Putin, right, and another Russian official, and then the Russian. I saw a headline that the Russian foreign minister summoned the Canadian ambassador or something and said, you can't call for regime change. And I thought that was funny because I also thought, like, why does Canada have an ambassador in a country that's run by a war criminal, right? Like, what's going on there? And it reminded me of when the foreign minister rejected the idea of expelling Chinese consulate officials, right? It's like, listen, the Chinese state is interfering in our democracy now. Like, this is serious stuff. This is, I mean, you can persecute Han Dong. You can force conservative politicians to resign. You can get every Chinese Canadian, to testify that they're loyal or whatever kind of public humiliation you want to impose on people. But if you really want to keep us safe, the first thing you should do is expel all the Chinese state officials, right? Get them out of here. But the foreign minister said, well, the trouble with that is then they'll expel our officials and then we'll lose our eyes and ears on the ground in China. And it's like, this is another moment where you see what this is really about, right? It's like, excuse me, I thought you were trying to protect Canadian democracy. Why do you need eyes and ears in this dystopic country that's controlling your prime minister?
Yeah,
I would think you would want to, like, shouldn't we, to take a Chinese solution, shouldn't we have a Great Wall of China or something that we build, keep the state out, cut off all relations? These are criminals. You're trying to regime change them. They're interfering in your democracy, but you still want to have embassies there. You still want to do business there. That's strange.
It is strange. Well, do you want to speculate a little bit? Because we connected over this tweet I had where I said that I was kind of like getting the impression that Trudeau's being cooed by CSIS. I know maybe it's not as simple as that, but like, do you have any speculation about like what is actually driving this? Is this a few rogue racists in CSIS? Is this orders coming down from the U.S. State Department to escalate with China because the Taiwan conflict is heating up to the extent that they're trying to? Like, what do you think is behind this, animating this?
All of that. So somebody said that one of the only arguments, I mean, there were barely any arguments coming in your replies to that, but like one of the only arguments that I see is like, Trudeau has been so good for the US. Why would they try, why would there be a coup attempt against him? And I think that kind of misunderstands the way these power struggles work, because by that logic, like, why is there a Conservative Party at all? Like, the Democrats do such good work for capitalists in the US. Why is there a Republican Party? If Israel, like both parties in Israel are committed to ethnic cleansing the Palestinians, why are there, or not both, like all, right? Yeah. Labor and Likud and whatever all these coalitions are. Why do they have different parties? Because the ruling class has factions, and they have different approaches that they want to put forward. And like, a lot of Canadian elites, I think, are pretty liberal. They do believe in a multicultural kind of imperialism, a rainbow imperialism, a kind of multi-ethnic coalition to steal indigenous land and plunder the third world, together. And then there are, there's always this neoliberal, and then there's a neoconservative, which is like, that doesn't work, because when people resist, you have to be ruthless and you have to be racist and you have to, be aggressive. And they always have a strategic disagreement that can sometimes get kind of volatile. And over, the convoy was another example, right? Like Trudeau serves, like, again, Trudeau was the vaccine mandate was in the process of dissolving when the convoy happened. After they won that objective, they just changed the goalposts, right? So it's like there's a kind of an aggressive type of approach, whether you call it like neoconservatism, which is like about intimidation and rule by force and more overt racism. And they often don't like the kind of neoliberal, and these days they hate them. Like it can get pretty vitriolic. So I think that's all what it is. Like, I think it's pretty clear to me that CSIS, I don't want to say it's clear to me. Let me have the standards of evidence that I don't that I don't believe they have. Like, I think I'm speculating, but my speculation is that, based on, for example, say 100 years of Latin American history or all of Canadian history, where the US exerts specific control and influence through police, through military, through training organization, training exchanges and operations. They had the School of the Americas, Western Hemispheric Institute for Security Cooperation. They train Latin American military officers and they send them back. The intelligence agencies have all these links through Five Eyes. So I think that if you are in that type of agency, you feel a real camaraderie and a real kind of daily solidarity with your American bosses. That if you're in parliament and you're like a kind of a legalistic parliamentarian who has, from the family royalty, you're part of this Trudeau dynasty that upholds Parliament and the rules of Parliament and the sovereign control of Parliament and all that stuff. There could be differences about how these things are supposed to unfold and who's supposed to do them and when and under what circumstances. And so that kind of dispute is enough to fuel, a vitriolic scandal that of the kind that we're seeing, I think. And considerably more. So I don't think Trudeau, like, this is, people are saying things like, I saw people say things on Twitter like, well, why would you think Trudeau is a defender of Canadian sovereignty or whatever? And it's like, he's not, but like, he probably does have a different idea of what that means than the CSIS guy, right?
Yeah, like you said, it's like the multicultural rainbow imperialism versus the real thing, the real deal. You know, the real reactionary brand of it, and these two different wings of the ruling class kind of pushing up against each other. And I just do think there's an element as well that, you know, this, even though I think no one could accurately describe Trudeau and the Liberals as being like, you know, fence sitters on this, I think they've been incredibly hostile to China and antagonistic. I do get the sense that, you know, the tensions are ramping up. I know there is a desire on the part of the sort of U.S. led security state to turn Taiwan into the next Ukraine. Yeah. And it's a way of like ratcheting up these kinds of tensions and ensuring that no one, even if you're trying to remotely have a diplomatic stance towards Beijing, it's not going to be acceptable. It's not going to be allowed. It can only be this kind of very full-throated Red Scare, Yellow Peril, xenophobia, or nothing. Mm-hmm. And that's the kind of message that's getting across to people in Canada right now.
And that's the context. But then there's also like the nature of a particular game and a particular campaign, which is happening now, which is like individual actors in the media, like Fife and Chase or whoever it is, like the reporters that have this secret sauce, you know, they see career opportunities, they see, you know, clicks and whatever, the attention economy aspect of it. Politicians see the need to position themselves relative to whatever story is going on at the time. Politicians see the possible advantages of attacking, for example, the government that's in power as traitorous. And that whole, like, looking for a narrow advantage during a particular moment at the expense of, you know, unleashing a whole different kind of racism of the type that, you know, that Canada's not known for anymore. You know, people are willing to do it. And that, like, I think that's part of what I was writing about in my newsletter, which is like, there's definitely a context where, you know, globally, the Anglosphere, the Anglo-American empire is upset because China is not subordinate the way that China is supposed to be subordinate, the way that third world countries are supposed to be subordinate.
We kind of thought that they were going to be a sort of junior partner in the global neoliberal project, and they've kind of now grown out from under that.
Yeah, and they don't really want to be a junior or anything. Yeah, they don't really see, that's not how they see themselves.
Yeah,
and it's like, how are we going to put them in their place? That's like the overall context, and it's like, if we control Chinese Canadian contact, if we kind of like make sure that anyone who goes to China or like works with Chinese people or whatever has to have like special heavy bureaucratic surveillance and register for some foreign registry, or, you know, get doubly, triply vetted by the racists and CSIS or whatever it is they're trying to get, you know, a special passport or whatever. That can provide some kind of illusion of control. It can't actually, there's no putting China in their place anymore. Like, sorry, that's not going to happen.
In fact, it's going to be quite the opposite.
Like,
more like,
take a deep breath, everybody. Like, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, that ship has sailed.
Okay. That ship has sailed. I mean, there's definitely plenty of room to persecute and be racist against Chinese Canadians. And, you know, I hate to see it unfolding, and I hate to see how far it's going to go. I also hate to see people like brown people like myself and like our NDP leader, like playing this game too. It's like, you guys, you don't remember them calling us Packies? Like,
yeah.
What do you think they think we are?
Well, that's what I couldn't believe Jagmeet Singh kind of getting on board this campaign, considering he himself has been the victim of this kind of like dual allegiance, kind of racist campaign about his own past and his own allegiances, and now he's jumping on board this very thing and contributing to it. It's really sickening.
It's sickening. And there's geopolitics too. Like India is actually cracking down on Punjabi Sikhs like right now. So like there could be, before very long, there could be like another public campaign against Jagmeet for, being a traitor to his home native country of India or what. Like these things are always available. And I can't believe the short-sightedness of people that are willing to join a campaign against Chinese Canadians.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Is we can laugh at how ridiculous the story is because I think it is very silly. But I don't know. I watched that speech by Han Dong from last night when he stepped down from the Liberals, tearfully saying, "I'm a loyal Canadian," and it's terrifying. Like to think about where this goes, like where this road leads. It's really scary, and I think people that are part of, like any immigrant diaspora, but people that are part of the Chinese Canadian diaspora should be very alarmed by this climate and the way that people, as our entire media class is getting on board with it, our entire political class across the ideological spectrum. It's very alarming, and like this is like I really feel like as well the scary thing, which is that we're only kind of barely scratching the surface, and that it can get ratcheted up a whole lot more, these kinds of tensions. And I don't know, it's leading us to this very scary place, and it's very disturbing, I think, to see our entire media class and our political class gleefully promoting this. Like again, all these white Canadian journalists they love this. They're just lapping it up. I think it's extremely alarming, even though I think we should also recognize that, but also we can have a laugh at how
we have to ridicule it too. It has to be recognized. And I mean, basic journalistic ethics and practice should have protected us against this. This is not how it's done. This is absolutely not how it's done. I don't understand. It's like everybody's just forgotten that. Like, just close the journalism schools. Just forget it. Like whatever you're teaching there, it's not, forget it. Just close it.
On the contrary, I have people saying like, well, these are what our journalistic standards are. So it must not be just a bunch of random sources. They must be doing their
circular
vetting of this
argument,
stuff, right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, just completely circular argument. Because it's all there, guys. That's the thing about journalism, right? That's the thing about writing. It's there. You can read it. If the evidence is there, you get to read it. That's the beauty of it, right?
Yeah.
It's not like we looked at something. Some asshole showed us. We looked at it. Which
good job.
I mean, no, but the other thing that's obviously on my mind is I do this historical podcast. We did an episode on the Dreyfus Affair, a 2-hour episode on the Dreyfus Affair, which is this thing where they basically took a French military officer who was Jewish. He was a Jewish military officer, and they said he was working for Germany. There was a military officer in the army that was secretly giving information to Germany, low quality information. It was 1904, so they kind of knew that World War I was coming. They kind of knew that it was going to involve Germany and France fighting. France was way behind militarily, and they kind of knew that they would probably lose if in the event of a war. And so they did the Dreyfus Affair where they stripped the guy. I mean, Han Dong's speech reminded me a lot of what they did, because they brought him in front of a big parade, on the parade ground, and they took off his military ranking and they stripped him of his ranking, and they kind of like made him kneel, and then they took him to jail. And, it's very close to what happened. Like the guy had to leave Congress and, not Congress. He had to step down from the Liberal Party and renounce all his things and pledge his loyalty because Jewish people. So it was a big anti-Semitic panic during the Dreyfus Affair, which was like, he's a Jew, which means he's not really loyal to France. He's loyal to Germany, which is where all the, Jewish people are. This is obviously pre-Holocaust, pre-World War II. So he was under suspicion automatically, like all their other Jews who were privy to secret information, because his loyalty to France was questioned. And then it was all like there was a specific newspaper in France that was like, you know, some reporters that were really excited about like getting this Jew, and then there were factions inside intelligence. There was a faction in intelligence, in French intelligence, that was, you know, covering things up and putting people off the trail, and then there were people who went to jail. There was journalists that were trying to call attention to this. Zola, right, published this famous article, J'accuse, and he actually had to go into exile because they went after him for publishing that. And so one of the there's several things to be learned from this. And obviously nothing has been learned and nothing will be learned. Even in France, nothing is learned. In France, apparently the right wing in France is saying, we still think Dreyfus was guilty 115 years later. So the right wing in France has learned nothing, which is fine. It's France's prerogative to learn nothing, right? But Canada has learned nothing. But among the things that is important here is like France was greatly weakened by this. Like the solidarity that France had, like the whole French idea of like what a French identity, what a French citizen is, right? Like that comes from the revolution. It's like this is what it means. Like these are the ideals. This is the, you know, anybody can be French, right? That was there. I mean, of course. Of course. Yeah. Just like what we say about multiculturalism. It's like, this is not, this is all bad. Okay. But like, that was very damaging for them also in terms of their ability to, for example, defend their country against Germany when the time came. And so it's going to be bad for Canada. This is all really bad for Canada. And it's like the idea, there's two things for me. One is like the idea that some racist in CSIS can just drip out fiction stories that the whole media just dances to their tune, and now politicians too. It's pretty amazing in terms of the fragility of the Canadian system on the one hand.
Yeah.
And it's pretty amazing in terms of, you know, how not resilient this system really is. I guess that's the same point I just said in two different ways.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, that's it. I mean, I think that's a really great analogy, because a lot of what we're seeing right now in terms of this kind of new Cold War, the new Red Scare, the new Yellow Peril, or whatever you want to call it, we are in this period right now of history repeating itself.
Yeah.
Which just seems terrifying when you know where the history went the last time. That's this very scary thing about where we're currently going.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I think that's another important point as well, which is that like, is this going to hurt Canadians or not? And that's kind of the fundamental question for me as well. Like you pointed out before, China's just not going back to being put in their place. They're not going to go back to being a loyal client state of U.S. imperialism or the U.S.-led economic system. They're this emerging global superpower. There's this whole shifting geopolitical landscape right now, the emergence of this like multilateral world, and China's a center part of that. So what's better for Canada, whether we have bilateral ties with this new global power? No, I don't want to say hegemonic, because I think they want to avoid that kind of distinction, but we can have bilateral ties that are mutually beneficial with this emerging global power and try to promote peace and prosperity and fight climate change and do all these things we have to do. Or we can shackle ourselves to the dying U.S. empire and take this like very like this antagonistic stance, this constantly provoking this new global power, which is going to be better for people in Canada. And it seems we're absolutely determined to go down that second path rather than the first path, which to me is a lot more of a reasonable and peaceful path that we could be going down. And ultimately it's not just people in the Chinese Canadian diaspora that are going to suffer from that. It's everyone that lives here. As long as we keep having this kind of subservient role in global imperialism, we're just going to keep making these decisions, and we're going to keep going down this path of inevitable conflict. And it's not going to be good for anybody. So
No.
It's scary. It's a scary moment right now, and you see these trends start to reassert themselves.
So should we place bets on what tomorrow's CSIS leak is going to be?
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it's that time that Xi Jinping humiliated Trudeau in that moment when he was like, stop leaking stuff to the press. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Maybe they passed him some kind of a secret Morse code.
Yeah. Maybe it's like language analysts.
Yeah, you can get the
when Xi
posture,
Jinping turned away, he was actually telling Trudeau, like,
Yeah, something like that. That's where I think this is going next.
Right.
Anyway, Justin, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. I really appreciate that you were to come on at really short notice. I'm glad we could connect over this.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
Thanks
Thank
a lot
you.
for joining
but
us.
let's build a critical mass of people who will understand how ridiculous this is.
I think it's important. Absolutely.
The more we can, because the other thing about this whole mess that they're creating is it really does depend on unanimity and monopoly, and they're drowning us out because they just have a complete lock on the parties and the media, but I think we can make some noise on the channels that we do have, and at least we have to try to counter this.
Yeah, well, that's what I always point out as well. We love to lecture other countries around the world about our freedom of the press and freedom of expression and stuff. Yet in these moments, lo and behold, our major media institutions are not having on dissenting voices,
no.
even as a cursory just effort to appear to be impartial.
Yeah, have us on and beat us up in the debate or whatever. Let's do it.
Yeah, in the marketplace of ideas. Exactly. I'd be happy to be part of that. Definitely. Well,
right,
thanks again, Justin. We'll do it again soon. You're welcome to come back on the show anytime.
Thanks, Rob.
Okay, take
Cheers.
care. That was great. Justin Poder, everyone. That was wonderful. I'm really happy we could put that together. That was really at the last minute that came together. Like just this morning, I was texting him while I was dropping my kid off at school, waiting in the car outside. Put Rob in a suit on cable TV. So I'm telling people, I keep making this claim. If you work for CBC, if you work for Global News, if you're part of the Canadian media establishment, invite me onto something, okay? Even if it's just as the cursory, look at this wacky left-wing guy. Look what he believes. Can you believe that? Do we have free speech in this country or not? Do we have a marketplace of ideas, or do we just, in these moments, bring on CSIS guys and people from the reactionary Chinese diaspora that goes along with all these narratives? Are people connected to these think tanks or NGOs which promote and support Western imperialism? Is that all that we can talk about in our media? I don't know. It shouldn't be that hard to sell the controversy engagement. I mean, that's the thing. That's how I know how completely dedicated these media institutions are to never even remotely exploring any of these viewpoints. Anyway, yeah, that was really great stuff. I was really happy we could put that together. Thanks again to Justin for coming on the show. I got to take a little break and go to the bathroom, folks. What if you enjoy that interview, folks, and if you enjoy this show and this content, and you want to support this alternative viewpoint in Canada, what do we say about we got 2 subs? We're 2 subs away from the goal. If you want to have this kind of content, pushing back on this kind of narrative, the only way that this show is allowed to continue, is able to continue to stay on the air, is through the unbelievable generosity of the TRRS community and the viewers of this program. You're too reasonable. They got someone like Jackson Hinkle. That's right. You got to get someone that you can put into this kind of reactionary tent, ideological tent. Would love to see Justin back on to talk about his perspective on decolonization as a critical condition for a serious climate policy. His episode on that topic taught me a lot and would be great to share here. I really enjoyed talking to him, so I'd be happy to have him anytime, seriously. I'd be happy to have him anytime. Way better than watching that other Justin flap his gums. That's right. Even though I'm here defending him. I'm here defending the other Justin now. So what do you say, folks? Can we do 2? That's nothing. 2 subs is nothing. That's literally nothing. We could do 2 more subs, and then the goal would be there. You know? We'd hit the goal. Wouldn't that be exciting? I think it would be very exciting. I do have to take a moment to just like take a break, and then I'm going to come back and finish up. I will make sure to clip that segment, though, and make it so other people can see it, because I think in light of the way that the discourse has been going in this country about this subject, I think the conversation that we just had is a really important counterbalance to that. So I'm going to try and see if we can get that to as many people as we can. So just trying to find a little video I can throw on just for a few minutes. We got question period live. Here we go.
Cells, potentially being tortured. He knew that.
Look at that.
Did nothing. That would be a devastating scandal against our national interests. So I am simply asking for the government to clarify. On what date did the Prime Minister find out the revelations that one of his MPs may have helped keep our people in jail?
What did he know, and when did he know it?
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister knew very well what was happening to the two Michaels and made sure that his government would be standing up against China in the context of their arbitrary detention. And so in that sense, we will never accept any form of premise that this government and Canadians didn't work enough to bring them back home. It was our priority.
Plunger Man, thank you so much for the gifted sub.
You can be convinced that
Thank
it
you,
will
Plunger Man. I
always
appreciate
be
it.
our priority when it comes to any form of consular cases or any form of arbitrarily detained Canadians in this world.
The Honourable Member for La Prairie. Mr. Speaker, Quebecers were already worried about interference in the electoral system, and yesterday this went a step further regarding extremely grave allegations against a Liberal Member of Parliament. So it's not just our electoral system that's at stake.
Imagine if I was
the
an MP,
trust of Canadians and Quebecers in this Parliament.
On
it's not up to the Prime Minister to appoint his friend who might reflect on whether maybe one day he might launch a public inquiry. We need to act now. And so when is the Prime Minister going to finally launch a public,
and saddens me as well, Vice Erica. It does.
Inquiry? It's urgent. The Honourable Minister of Intergovernmental Affairs. Mr. Speaker, we understand Canadians' concern with regard to allegations of foreign interference in our democratic institutions. And we share those concerns, and they should be shared by all members of this House of Commons. We have set up robust measures to counter foreign interference. We have strengthened these mechanisms
just talk amongst yourselves.
Over the past years, and the appointment of the
Right Honourable
David Johnston is part of these efforts to strengthen them even more. The Honourable Member for La Prairie. Mr. Speaker, at first we learned that China was meddled in our elections, and then yesterday we learned that a Liberal MP advised a Chinese diplomat to act against the interests of Canadians. So we're seeing this more and more in the media. So what we're seeing is that there's still no public inquiry, and that the government appointed its friend to reflect on whether we should launch a public inquiry, whereas it is needed now. That commission of inquiry must be done because it's urgent. The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would like to reassure this House and, of course, my colleague that the fact that we brought back Michael Spavor and Michael Kovrig was always the priority of this government. And I think for everyone in this House and all Canadians, it was a priority as well. And September 24th, 2021 was a great day because finally they returned home to Canada. So we will always ensure that this is a priority, defending any Canadians who are arbitrarily detained abroad, because we will never accept any kind of arbitrary detention. Thank you. The honourable member for Burnaby South.
Mr. Speaker, enough is enough. Every day new allegations come forward about political interference that erode the public's trust in our democracy. It's becoming more and more clear to the public that the Prime Minister must have known about these allegations. Communities are at risk of being stigmatized. We need to clear the air. So will the Prime Minister do the right thing and allow his MPs to vote in favor of our motion today for a transparent, independent public inquiry, yes or no?
Hear, hear. Hear, hear. Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the Leader of the NDP for his question. We obviously share his concern about the importance of not stigmatizing communities in Canada. I think all members of this House, Mr. Speaker, know that our government wants to have a respectful, nonpartisan, fact-based conversation around these allegations, around how we can work together to further reinforce our democratic institutions.
Yes, entertaining the idea is creating the
ensure
stigma.
That
Yes, it is.
interference is something that is always countered by the government. It's something that we've done, Mr. Speaker, since we formed the government, and it's something that we'll continue to do to ensure that Canadians can have confidence in our democracy.
The honourable member for Burnaby South.
And the way we do everything the Minister just said is by launching a public inquiry. Les allégations publiées.
The allegations published yesterday are shocking and troubling, and it's clear that we need a public inquiry. These allegations undermine public trust in our democracy, and we have the opportunity today to do so. So will the Prime Minister allow his members to vote in favor of our motion calling for a public, transparent, and independent inquiry, yes or no? The Honourable Minister of Intergovernmental Affairs. Mr. Speaker, as I said earlier, we share the concerns of the NDP leader and of all Canadians.
The NDP is just killing it.
When we need to have a discussion on these issues, nonpartisan issues based on facts, we have institutions that are already in place that do important work in this regard. We have asked the Right Honourable David Johnston.
This is Canada, Grom.
An eminent
We're talking
Canadian
about Canada stuff right
to review the institutions that are already in place and to
I love how they
give us
barely responded to our
advice on
hysteria.
any additional measures that we could take, and we are eager to see his results. Thank you.
Thornhill.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday Global News printed very serious allegations about a member who sits in this House.
Folks,
the
as you know,
allegations, according to two separate
when
national
we go to
security
China
sources, state
and we start leveling all these kinds of accusations at them, and we say, "How dare you, Mr. Jinping, sir? How dare you interfere in our democracy?" You know what they say? You know what they say? They say this. Shit. We say, "How dare you? How dare you interfere in our democracy?"
You can count on me.
President
You're gonna have good
Jinping,
old Rob to
and they
talk
say-
you through all this.
I'm here to tell you right now, we don't care.
Let me tell you something.
We don't care.
Jerry.
At every stage,
Hey, this is up
Canadians
goal.
can be
Gen X
confident
Bushy,
that
thank
we
you
are
very
protecting
much.
our institutions.
Gen X Bushy, thank you for
Canadians
the
can be
gifted sub.
confident that we are protecting
Thank
our
you.
elections. And Mr. Speaker, above all, Canadians can be assured of the fact that this government works 24/7 to ensure the return of the two Michaels back to Canada, and that is
The
something that
34
we
was
did.
driving me crazy as well.
Well, member for Thornhill.
Mr. Speaker, the allegations from two separate national security sources state that a member in this House privately advised Beijing
Two whole
officials to
national
hold
security
off
sources.
freeing two Canadian hostages held captive for over 1,000 days. After all of the new evidence Canadians have learned on election interference,
The two
it would
Michaels.
be difficult for them to believe that security sources told Global News about the Liberal members' actions without anyone trying to inform the Prime Minister. So I'll ask for the 7th time today. On what day did the Prime Minister first learn of these allegations
What did Trudeau
against a
know?
member of
When
his
did he
own
know
caucus?
it?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I assure my colleague that this government has set up the appropriate mechanisms to deal with the allegations with regards to foreign interference in our elections through the creation of COUP, through the creation of INSIRA, and now through the appointment of
You're
Mr.
talking about
David
this evidence,
Johnston,
as we were
who was
pointing out.
initially appointed by
The evidence is anonymous CSIS sources who showed these dipshits in our Canadian media class some fucking memo about it. That's the evidence.
Important challenges of foreign interference, but no member in this chamber should have any doubt whatsoever as to the way in which we are protecting our institutions and ensure the return of the two Michaels to Canada.
The Honourable Member for Brantford-Brant.
That's
Mr.
right.
Speaker,
Envy
the
Adams, that's
evidence
correct.
is mounting. Every day we are finding new pieces to the foreign interference puzzle. Just yesterday, new allegations were revealed which led to the resignation of a long-standing member
Both Michaels
of the
gotta be.
Liberal caucus.
I don't think they are, because probably these
We
guys
will
are like, stop
continue
talking
to
about us,
ask
because then we're going to
questions
reveal that
until
we're
Canadians
spies.
get a straightforward answer. Now, for the 8th consecutive time, on what date did the Prime Minister first learn of these serious and troubling allegations?
This is really productive.
The Honourable Minister for Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, since we took the reins of government, we have raised the bar of transparency through the creation of the National Security Intelligence Review Agency, through the creation of the National Security Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians that sees parties work across the partisan aisle, and now with the most recent appointment of David Johnston as an independent expert
I've
who
been
will
playing
look
the intense
into
theme
these
from
questions
JFK. That is
to
one thing that's
reassure
been missing
Canadians
from
that they
this.
can have confidence in our institutions, in our elections, in our defense of human rights, which manifested in a campaign to see the two Michaels return to Canada. That is something that every member of this chamber and all Canadians can be confident in.
Member for Miramichi Grand Lake.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday, new serious allegations about foreign interference in federal elections led to a high-profile resignation from the Liberal caucus. A caucus member who the Prime Minister has staunchly defended. We have already asked it 8 times today. I'll give them a 9th time to answer. On what day did the Prime Minister first learn of these troubling allegations?
The Honourable Minister for Interparliamentary.
Speaker, I'm happy to answer the question from my colleague from Miramichi, New Brunswick. As has been said on many occasions in this House, Mr. Speaker, we think Canadians benefit from a nonpartisan, fact-based conversation about these very serious issues. We know the Conservative Party is seeking to turn this issue into a partisan circus. Mr. Speaker, what we're trying to do is reassure Canadians that we have a robust system to protect our democratic institutions. Our government has taken these allegations
just ask one more
seriously
time.
since we formed office, and the Right Honourable David Johnston is the right person to give us ideas on the next steps to reinforce.
The Honourable Member for St. Albert, Edmonton.
Speaker, day after day, there are new questions
Look at
about
this
what this
nerd.
Prime Minister knows about Beijing's interference. Yesterday, it was reported, based on national
Where is
security
your chin,
sources,
sir?
that a Liberal
You can't fool us with
MP
that
advised
facial hair.
Beijing's Toronto Consul General
Where is your
that
chin?
the two Michaels languish in a Communist Party jail because somehow their release would benefit the Conservatives. This is about as serious as it gets. The Prime Minister needs to come clean. For the 10th time, when did the Prime Minister learn of these allegations?
Honourable Minister report.
I heard the CPC confiscated that guy's chin.
Mr. Speaker, when it comes to making sure that the two Michaels, Michael Kubrick and Michael Spavor, would be coming home, it was this government's
Oh man, all the two
party
Michaels references
for
are
2 years.
really tickling something
The
in me.
Prime Minister, Foreign Affairs Ministers have been heavily involved. All members of Cabinet talking to counterparts from around the world, thinking that, or even alluding to the fact that this was not the case, is absolutely false.
That's right.
And we hope that all members in this House were convinced that we were working together to make sure to bring them
Imagine
back.
having to sit through this. What a dumbass you'd have to be to watch this
Wellington,
shit.
Halton Hills.
Mr. this guy's very serious
again,
looking.
for the 11th time, on what date did the
Greatest
Prime Minister
democracy in the world,
first
folks.
learn
This is just
about
the envy of the
allegation
world.
that
Any
a
country that
Liberal
doesn't have a liberal
MP
style democracy like this
suggested to Han Tao, the PRC's
should just be
Consul
embarrassed.
General in Toronto, that the PRC delay the release of Mr. Kovrig and Mr. Spavor.
It really makes you proud,
The
doesn't it?
Honourable Minister for Public Safety.
You see, this man has
We will
Lego
continue
ass
to be
hair.
transparent with Canadians when it comes to the ways in which we are fighting foreign interference through the collaboration of all parties in the COUP, through accountability of NCIRA, and now through the appointment of David Johnston, an eminent Canadian previously appointed by Stephen Harper, a Conservative Prime Minister, someone who
Chinese
will lay
people
out
yearn
the
for their
next
own
practical
question
steps,
period in the
including
CPC.
and up to a public inquiry, so that all Canadians can be confident that we are protecting our institutions, but no one should doubt, not for a single moment, that we did everything in our power to secure the return of the two Canadians. It was the right thing to do. Those two Michaels are back home, and that is something that should be celebrated by all members in this chamber.
If you were drinking every time they said two Michaels, you would just be absolutely
Mr.
under the
Speaker,
table
we
by
know
now.
that the Ontario Premier Doug Ford was warned by CSIS that there was
It is
alleged
boring. It is boring,
Chinese
moist
interference in the
outlets.
last provincial election.
This is why our
And
media
we
class
even
is
know
going
that
crazy
this
over this
interference
story right now.
targeted Don Valley
They
North.
get a little bit of
the same
excitement in
riding
their lives for
represented
once.
by the federal Liberal MP who was targeted by the allegations in Global News yesterday. We know this because Mr. Ford said so publicly. Was the Prime Minister notified by CSIS that it was discussing
Hildy.
potential
Oh, no.
foreign interference in the Ontario
Hildy, be
elections with
careful.
Doug Ford, the Honourable Minister? Mr. Speaker, as we have been saying for many months now,
I do think it is more spirited than the congressional
allegations
debates.
of
I would like
foreign
to see more of
interference
this
are
kind
not
of
just
shit
at the
in
federal level.
the United States Congress,
Democratic
frankly.
institutions in the provinces were
It's at least
surely
vaguely
also
entertaining to look
targeted
at.
by this activity. Currently, in the context of federal elections, we are continuing to have discussions with the provincial premiers. I myself had a discussion with Doug Ford regarding the strengthening of democratic institutions, and we offered the provincial governments access to officials and information so that they
I
can
do like
strengthen
the-
their democracy. The Honourable Member for Trois-Rivières.
Westminster
Mr. Speaker,
Parliament
we
shit
also
as well.
know that the outgoing
I like all the
mayor
hooting
of,
and hollering.
Vancouver,
I do like
Kennedy
that.
Stewart, discussed with CSIS potential Chinese interference in elections, in their municipal elections, because he too said so publicly. Was the Prime Minister notified by CS that Chinese interference was alleged to have have happened in these elections? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, we have said many times,
enjoy a
and I
good
said so
hullabaloo.
before
It's
the
true.
PROC committee a few weeks ago, we are updated regularly with regard to foreign interference in elections, and we have offered provincial authorities briefings and access to senior officials who are responsible for our intelligence agencies for the very reason we want them to understand this threat that is constantly evolving and to take the necessary measures in their jurisdictions to do
this
what
motherfucker's
we
had
have done, that
necessary
is strengthening
measures.
their democratic institutions. Mr. Speaker,
I would never mess up like that.
if we sum up, CSIS spoke openly with municipalities about Chinese interference and with the provinces, but they would have us believe that the CSIS doesn't let the federal government know. Apparently, it's only through the media that the Prime Minister knew that one of his members had personal diplomatic ties with Beijing. So either CSIS tells the Prime Minister everything except for what's happening in his own backyard, or CSIS talks with everyone except the federal government. So what should we believe? When will a public inquiry be launched? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, my colleague knows full well that CSIS officials speak.
I'm tapping out. I think we've covered this story extensively for today. You know, it's painful to look at, it's painful to talk about, but I think it's important to talk about. I think it's important to pay close attention to what's going on here. You know, and like I was saying before, both, prior to getting started with the conversation with Justin, we can and should, I think, mock this and laugh at it, but make no mistake, we're in a really dangerous kind of situation. We're going down a very dark path right now. And that's my fear, is that this is only going to continue to escalate. I really do believe that, though, that we're only scratching the surface of how bad that this discourse is going to get, and how this culture of like paranoia and antagonism that's going to, I think, really affect people in the Chinese Canadian diaspora, and even really anyone that has Asian heritage. It's not like people are going to stop to ask fucking questions about anyone that's from any Asian country, whether they're Japanese or Thai or from the Philippines or Korean. It's not like the people that are going to get radicalized by this are going to be really discerning for who's from where. And I don't know if you watched that speech by Han Dong from last night, and you're not really alarmed by where this is going, then I don't know what to tell you, honestly. I don't know what to tell you, because I think it's a really dangerous moment that we're in right now. That was a very good interview. Don't forget to drop a link when you up it so we can signal boost it. I think I got to put all my interviews from this week on YouTube. I think it's important to get those out there now. But yeah, I think that was very good. Maybe there's a way I can get some people in this country to look at it and maybe take a step back from the ledge here over this. Many people are in denial about the gravity of it. It's really scary. It's a really scary situation. Thanks for watching the stream, friends. Thanks for hanging out with me yet again. I'll be back tomorrow. I'll be back tomorrow for the final episode of the week. I really appreciate everyone that supported the stream today and tuned in and participated in this. It was great stuff. If you're new to the community, if it's your first time hanging out, or if you came here yesterday with the Deprogram Pod interview, please make sure you join the Discord server. Okay? Join that Discord server. Get notifications when I go live. TRRS airs right here live on twitch.tv/RobRousseau every single day of the week. Well, during the Monday, Tuesday, 5 days a week.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old
5
Rob
days a
to
week.
talk you through all this.
Ben, thank you for the gifted sub. Thank you.
This is some guy, Rob Russo, some leftist based in Canada. I was turned on to this sick individual, and I found this.
Dan Simpson, thank you for the raid. I very much appreciate the raid. Dan Simpson, shout out to Dan. I appreciate that, Dan. I'm just leaving now. I'm just leaving. You just missed me. You just missed me. Good chatting, everybody. Riding the raid train. That's right, Poison. That's right. Love your faces it leaves. Thank you, River and Ravens. I appreciate it. This is a great episode today. In fact, I encourage people to come. If you missed it, I will make sure to throw it on as a highlight and probably throw it on YouTube. Check out my interview with anti-imperialist writer and podcaster Justin Podur. It was really great stuff to talk about this story about Canadian-Chinese interference, the Chinese interference into Canadian democracy. The Red Scare is really escalating in Canada. This kind of xenophobic sort of yellow peril campaign is really escalating to a very dangerous place, and I think it's really important to carve out places where we can push back against that, because as we talked about in our mainstream discourse, it's completely dominated by people that are 100% going along with this narrative. And no one is zero pushback against it whatsoever. So thanks again, folks. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Join the Discord if you haven't already. There's also a merch sale. 10 seconds left. If you want merch like this sweater, though, it's on sale right now on TeePublic. Go pick that up. And that's all. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Goodbye.